All right, number 5 in a totally completely smooth transition. We are going into my number 5.
A totally seamless transition between Saturday and Monday.
So, my number 5 is Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, I really do think its timing played a big part into why I played it so much. We were in the doldrums of our first and most direst lockdown, kind of, where we didn't know what was going to happen, and there was just 0 people on the streets, unlike today, where there's still lots of people on the streets, even though our restrictions are even harsher this time. Mm-hmm. But me and Leanna, I want to say for the first 2 solid months, we were both putting in hours every day.
And that came out really early during the pandemic too, so it must have been nice right away to be able to hop into seasonal events like Easter and stuff and be able to just roll as though nothing ever happened, right?
Well, not Easter. That is not a thing I wanted to hop into, the Easter event at all.
But not Easter, huh?
Your point remains, though, very solid.
I'm just pulling, but...
Yeah, when there were fun events, we would get excited. But Animal Crossing, because I knew I was like, okay, this is going to be the one I'm going to be playing for sure, because I always kind of steered clear of all the DS ones and City Folk on the Wii. I was like, oh, cool, Animal Crossing. I remember when I was really into that. But for whatever reason, I got super, super hyped up for New Horizons, and I'm very happy, and I look very positively on the time I spent on it, which was mostly fishing. I would fish and just play movies, like 2 or 3 movies on a loop, and I'd just fish the entire time while listening to the movies. I had fished so long at one point and just, all right, I got a fish. That seems like a good one. That's not a black bass. You keep it. Throw away all the garbage. I don't want it. And then I looked at my inventory and I was like, I got a golden trout, which is maybe the rarest fish in the game. There might be one that's rarer, but I know for a fact everyone was, I've been spending 2 months trying to get a golden trout. I've not gotten it. I just was in such a mode of kind of vegging out and playing it. I didn't even realize what I had. Fortunately, I didn't throw them out or anything like that. But
enlightened flow state where nothing could stop you.
Yes, Zen.
Yeah.
And playing it with Leanna too was really, really fun. Just us making decisions together. She would take care of a lot of the design for the actual I would actually get the money. I would be collecting all the fish, all the bugs, anything we could sell. And then she would do that too, but then she would make lots of fun things on our island. So it was a really good time. I don't really have anything that negative to say about it, but like any life sim, when you play it enough, you start to see the bits that you're like, why can you not craft in stacks? I want to craft this amount of things. Let me see one animation. Mm-hmm. Why do if I need to make clam bait for fishing, you have to painstakingly get a bunch of clam bait and then watch you do the crafting animation 12 times in a row.
Once per item, basically?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And at first it's not that big of a deal, but then when you start saying, I want to focus on getting fish, or I want to focus on, designing things, and you see those limitations that I'm assuming Nintendo probably didn't even realize that would annoy people over time. But the fact that some of those things are still in the game and have not been fixed, or little quality of life improvements, they have improved the game certainly with a lot of new stuff. But I did drop off it come the summer, but that I still spent a shitload of time playing it. And I still, when I hear the music of Animal Crossing New Horizons specifically, I'll get really nostalgic. Since we're back on a big lockdown, Leanna's gotten back into it again, so I'll still hear the music and I'll be like, oh, that was so fun.
Those halcyon days of March Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I have that down in my notes. It's like, gotta say, Halasan.
Oh my god, the word exactly, Jesus. Nice.
So I could not have it there, even though like it's functional, like it's intent for you to put time in it, like, you know, every couple of days or weeks, or, you know, I did drop off and I stopped playing altogether, but I had too much fun with it. It was the only thing I played literally from March to April, and then like well into April, then I started on Doom Eternal. Even though it was out at the same time. And my parting words is that, like, I think I made a tweet about this, but I was just like, the Isabel and Doomslayer pairing was like the first and only time we collectively were like happy with something in 2020, where just everyone's like, oh, that's fun. Nothing really to criticize about that. It was just a fun, stupid thing that kind of just synced up, and, you know, that was a good time. So
That was so
yeah,
cute and wholesome, and I appreciate that Bethesda kind of like was happy to play running with it a little.
it.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been, obviously Nintendo was never going to touch it. They had everything to lose and nothing to gain. But
Yeah, exactly.
But it was nice that Bethesda did acknowledge it a little.
Yeah, no, it was, because it's like, you know, it dwarfed the sales of Doom. It wasn't really.
Yeah,
you're not going to get
it
a
was
Doom.
always gonna.
You're not going to get a hardcore Doom player like, maybe I should give that game a whirl. You know,
right?
I'm sure it could happen, but
I didn't actually play it. I played all the previous Animal Crossings.
I remember you saying like you kind of put your time into the franchise and you're good for now.
So I played all the previous ones, and I love the GameCube one. I love the DS one. I peaked at the DS one. I played that one for hundreds of hours. And then every iteration after that, I would just play less and less. I didn't play the spin-off titles, but New Leaf on the 3DS, I think I only ended up playing it for like 20 or so hours, like tops.
Which is infinitesimal for that game, though.
Yeah, for Animal Crossing, it's as though I barely touched it.
But it is a lot.
It was still a lot of time, but but I you know, I saw the trend and I was like, I'm not going to do this again, especially now that it's, you know, twice as expensive, which is not a problem. I still think it's worth every penny, but not for me maybe. So I skipped it, but my girlfriend got it, and her mom was looking for something to do, and she decided to buy a Switch, and my girlfriend got her a copy of Animal Crossing as well. And after some initial trepidation, because she thought the animals were a little like goofy, she took to it. And my girlfriend's mom ended up playing Animal Crossing for over 400 hours since it came out.
There you go. That's the numbers you want to see.
Massive numbers. So I remember being, every time I would go over and like the Switch wasn't being used and nobody was looking, I'd always sort of like peek at her playtime in her profile and be like, my God, you didn't get anything done this month, huh? So I did get to enjoy it vicariously a little. It was nice to see a lot of the changes. I gotta say, the crafting mechanic seems really lovely. I remember a lot of people were very skeptical about it, because some folks feel like crafting is a little old hat nowadays. Mm-hmm. But it seems like it was a very natural addition for the series, and I think like that was generally a net win for the game.
Yeah, no, it definitely was, because if you just want to make an item or two and really customize things, like, it's great because it's simple and it works. But in my specific example, what I wanted to do, you could see like, it sucks that it has that limitation. But in general, like, it was fun where, I can make this thing, but I just need these two things. And the style of what Animal Crossing is really like leaned into that. So it did work really well, and, you know, gave a lot more possibilities. And the drawing tool too, I tried to make like little stone pathways to put it down, until I saw lots of other people making far superior ones. And that's one slight thing where I actually meant to mention this, but I kind of forgot, is that like, its online play is like very clunky, especially if you want to do certain things. Mm-hmm. But getting items, like getting to see like finding a particular artist that makes custom prints and textures to put on stuff. I found that like, once there's a little bit of initial setup, I found that actually surprisingly easy to do. And Leanna as well. So that part, like for like online sharing stuff was good, but actually visiting someone's island gets like really, really clunky. And that's obviously like could have been improved. And I don't know if they've made any improvements there. I want to say no, cause Nintendo, but maybe people that are still on New Horizons can inform me if there was any big strides made in that area.
Yeah. I sort of saw some of the bad side of that experience watching my girlfriend and her mom play it with how many loads and how many connecting screens there are and such. It does certainly seem not too seamless, unfortunately. For a game like Animal Crossing, I wouldn't expect so many waiting sequences. But hey,
I think overall I have this high because it's like, while I dropped off, certainly, it's like I have so many like very crystal clear, very positive memories, even though it was only just a few months ago, of like, oh yeah, that time where like, our disco, we were able to find that one thing that fit in our disco, a part of our island, or, when Isabel first came to the island and started being the mayor, and like there's all these little moments where I just kind of remember, I'm like, oh, that was so good. I was happy, and I was like happy to go to work for the game when I was stuck clearly in the work for your shit sort of phase, but I was loving it. I love to be exploited there by Mr. Nook.
That's great. One last question. What was your town's name?
Firepuss Island.
Firepuss Island, of course. That checks out.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Animal Crossing. Wait, what's this one called again? New Horizons. Animal Crossing New Horizons. That's what it's called.
Yes.
Right. Yes.
So what is your number 5?
Number 5. My number 5 is Astro's Playroom for the PS5.
Oh, okay.
But wait, Liam, isn't this game just a tech demo? I beg you to reconsider. Astro's Playroom is a sick little 3D platformer that comes pre-installed on PS5s, and it's also just free to download on PSN if you delete it, or if they eventually don't pre-install it on PS5s. And it's really, really good. It's a bit of I don't know if I'd say it's a sequel, but a bit of a successor to 2018's Game of the Year candidate, oh my god, Astrobot Rescue Mission, I believe it's called.
Rescue Mission, yeah.
Which I also absolutely loved. Plays
exactly... Lots of people, that went under a lot of radars, but the people I had spoken to, like you included, but there were like a few others are like, oh, that game, no one knows.
It's amazing.
But that game's real good.
Yeah, it came out in the same year as Mario Odyssey, I believe, and arguably just as good a platformer as Mario Odyssey. Anyway, this game builds off of that directly in a lot of ways. It reuses a lot of art and sound from it, but a lot of people didn't play that, so it's fresh and new, and that's maybe for the better, honestly, because boy, did they cram a lot of excellent platforming goodness into these scant 5 levels in one hub world. It's really sick. So a big part of this game, obviously, is to show off the PS5 and show off the DualSense controller, and those two things, I'm sure everyone has heard, are achieved incredibly well. Load times are like almost non-existent. It's lightning quick to hop into a level, even outside of when you're out of the game and you use the activities feature on the PS5 OS to just jump back into whatever level you were at, or some other level of your choosing. It takes like 5 seconds to go from the OS to actually playing the game, which is remarkable. It's truly seamless in a way that we haven't really gotten to see in a long time in games of this, like, quote-unquote caliber, like games of this grade. There's certainly a lot of indie games that load up quick and such, where they have very minimal graphical qualities, or asset sizes, I should say. But like getting to see games at this level of fidelity that just fucking go is really incredible. I'll get to another one later in my list, I'm sure.
Okay.
Anyway, as a platformer, it's just really good. It's a little bit no frills. It has a bunch of like little tiny level gimmicks, nothing you haven't seen before. In this level, you get a little gun, and this level, you I don't know, pull on switches, basic shit. But it lands them so well. It executes everything really flawlessly. Platforming feels great. Character feels great. DualSense controller is
That's what I was gonna say. The DualSense.
It also feels amazing. Yeah, it's hard to describe it in a way that makes it not sound annoying if you haven't actually held it for yourself.
Yeah, because even though I knew, like, oh yeah, this is supposed to be a big, sort of showcase thing for the DualSense in like small little ways, and then I was like, but whatever. I have other things to play. But then when you passed me the controller for it, I was like, you know what? That is really cool.
It's remarkable.
You do have to play it for yourself.
Yeah, and again, like a text version of it doesn't do it justice. I'll tell you, but believe me, if you're thinking to yourself, wow, that sounds annoying, I want to turn it all off, I implore you to second guess yourself and really give it a proper go when you get a chance. The controller vibrates ever so slightly with every footstep. The different textures you see represented on the ground and represented in the world around your bot are represented with different types of vibrations and different rumbles and different sound effects that come from the controller. Indeed, every single footstep, everything that touches your robot ends up spitting a sound from the controller speaker. Again, sounds super bothersome, really isn't. Actually feels incredible in the hand. This is almost kind of an aside. I'm more talking about the controller than the game at this point. But the DualSense controller vibration, when it's like really done properly, it's really next level. This is not your granddaddy's rumble pack or jump pack, I should say. This is sort of like the HD rumble that the Switch has, but
it's
better.
Like all over.
Yeah,
like
better
it's
and done
like
better.
It feels like it's all over the controller somehow.
A little more. This is not even to say anything of the triggers, the adaptive triggers, how they can be locked into place or change their tension, their level of tension dynamically. Just a really excellent little intro game for the PS5. Something I think every PS5 owner should play. Something I think, indeed, everyone who works on games that are going to come out on PS5 should play. Everyone who makes games and who is going to make a PS5 title should understand all the cool things you can do with the controller. Because, man, you can really add a lot of life to your game outside of the game itself. As far as the duration of the game, even though a lot of people kind of label it as a demo game, like it's like a solid 2 to 3 hours long to finish.
That's what I was about to ask, because I actually had no concept of how long. I thought it was even shorter than that, like a 45-minute thing. So it's nice. It's nice that it's like, kind of chunky for what it is.
Let me just check on how long to beat.
Real quick. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So how long to beat has it clocked actually at 3 hours main story, 4 hours main and extras, 5 hours completion, which sounds accurate. That sounds representative of my experience. It is, you can buy great games that are shorter than this, and this game is nicely provided for free. It is not a tech demo. It is definitely a full-ass game. There is a final boss, and I promise you will have a great time playing Astro's Playroom. For all of these very basic reasons, it is my number 5. It is just wonderful from start to finish. It ends before you get tired of it, almost to its detriment. Like, I would be down with another level. I'd be happy about that.
I remember you saying that to me not too long ago. You had said like, oh yeah, it ends, but I really could have done with another level.
Yeah, like it's just shy of what some invisible perfect length metric would be. But I guess that's the impossibility of measuring and executing on perfect length. For some people, it's not going to be enough. For some people, it's going to be too much. There's no perfect for everyone. So I think what they crammed in there 4 levels and then one special 5th finale level, in addition to the hub that you get to explore, and there's 8 little speedrun levels as well. I think there's a really good content spread in there, and the price is definitely right. So
Yes. I would love to see it's like a British studio. Like what is the name of the actual studio?
Asobo. Well, the team is just called Asobo Team, I think. Let me Google that. But they actually work at SCEJ, Sony Computer Entertainment Japan.
Oh, really? I was completely off there. For some reason, I thought it was like a Western studio.
It's actually not Asobo Studio. I'm a big dumb butt. Asobo Studio is a totally different studio. Asobi is like the branding they use all over Astrobot and shit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's like
I had that confused. So
in-game studio.
Yeah, Asobi Team is what they're called within Japan Studio in Japan.
Huh.
So,
interesting.
yeah.
Because I would really like to see them make like another thing of this quality. Like it doesn't have to be this big epic 20-hour thing, but like to make their own like sort of standalone thing on the PS5, and like because their first release was VR only, Astrobots Rescue Squad, right?
Actually, so they have a bit of a longer history than that. Same with the
Oh,
robots. Yeah. So their first release was the Playroom on PS4, which was a launch title.
Right.
Yeah, it was the PlayStation Camera like free pack-in
yes,
game.
Yes.
And it has the robots. And then their second game was the Playroom VR, which launched at the same time as PSVR, and it had all the robots as well. And within Playroom VR, there was a thing called Astro's, or it was just called Rescue Mission. Anyway, there was a single level Astrobot Rescue Mission level.
Right.
And people loved it. So it was called Robot Rescue, I think. And people liked it so much that they went ahead and made a full game for PSVR. And then this is their fourth game.
Okay.
But their first game that is not tied to a camera or VR or whatever.
Yeah.
So their first like purely quote unquote traditional game.
Right. It's traditional, but at the same time, there's always like, it having a sort of reputation of like, oh, that's just some demo thing, like that people that have not tried it or done like a whole lot of research on it might kind of pass by it. So I just mean like, it'd be really cool for them to get like, a boxed retail game for more people to kind of experience it, because they can go retroactively and check it out later. But like, there's always like one little caveat to these releases where they're either bundled in somewhere or, you have to do a little extra legwork to kind of figure out what it is. So I'm just really interested because like, yeah, all these things and the little bit I did play of this, I'm like, yeah, this does seem like really high quality. And again, not doing anything super new, but what it is doing is doing really well in a very charming way.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do think their next game at this point, I think they have more than proven themselves as developers who can consistently deliver excellent titles.
Yeah, for sure.
That get worldwide acclaim on a budget. They are a very small team. They're sub 20 people, if I remember correctly.
Ooh, yeah, that is small.
Their core team, anyway. So I would be really surprised if their next game wasn't a bigger release, especially since it's probably not a new piece of like PlayStation hardware that they need to promo on the horizon.
right. That's true.
It is worth noting all of their titles, even if they are sort of like regarded as like tech demo-y, they're all totally worth your time. They're all super good. But yeah, this is definitely a whole ass small game. One last thing that I actually totally glossed over mentioning, but I suppose it's a significant thing, is like a big theme of this game is PlayStation. The game takes place inside a fictitious PlayStation 5. The levels are themed after different aspects of it, like the hard drive. And you collect a bunch of PlayStation consoles and memorabilia as you play through. There's a lovingly detailed Vita, and when you attack it in the PlayStation Labo collection area, it does the nice Vita boot up sequence, and it shows a bootleg version of Tearaway called Bot Away, This exists for most of the consoles in the game, and it was lovely to see.
What about the Tekken thing? Talk about the Tekken thing.
I'm working up to the Tekken thing.
Okay, good.
It's lovely to see how lovingly recreated all these devices are. The other thing is they have a bunch of cameramen around the levels, and these cameramen always come paired with a character from another video game. Most of them are from PlayStation titles. That is to say, titles published by PlayStation, but a lot of them are actually from like third-party studios. And a few of my favorites were, yes, the amazing Tekken one, where you see Kazuya standing over Heihachi, and if you punch them, they'll get knocked apart, and Kazuya will do a sick combo, including like a dash cancel animation in order to get Heihachi back on the ground. Dante from the Devil May Cry series is there. You will see him launch an enemy into the air and juggle him. There are so many characters in there. You're definitely going to see someone you like. They're all animated super lovingly. Really cute. A lot of really cute dots. The jumping Flash one is also really lovely. But yeah, anyway, I'm going on about Astrobot Rescue Mission. Jesus, there's too many of these games. Going on about Astro's Playroom. But I assure you it is a really excellent game. And if you have access to a PS5, I highly encourage you to give it a go. It's not too long. You can bang it out and have a great time. So, yeah.
Good stuff, because I knew that would be in there somewhere, because you were one of the people that told me about Astrobot Rescue Mission. So when this was kind of, well, I guess it was by the time it was kind of out and people got to sort of experience it, like, yeah, it was pretty evident that it was something special, considering it was just like a free thing that they could have made this like a downloadable like thing you had to actually pay for. But so yeah, you're very right that the price is like, it's more than generous. As something of this length. Maybe if it was 45 minutes, then maybe a free demo. But the fact that it's like 2-3 hours long is really cool.
That's ultimately also what keeps me from plopping it down as like a tech demo. Because if you ever like actually play a tech demo, like, you're lucky to have 5 minutes of gameplay in there.
It's true. It's true.
So it's a whole ass game. Really amazing that the studio would have a chance to make a free game that probably most PS5 owners are going to play. That's really not an opportunity that almost any game developers ever get, and it's really
true.
Cool for them to get to do that as well. So.
Alrighty, so moving on, my number 4. Don't have to talk about this one that much because we already did. It is Streets of Rage 4 is my number 4.
Nice.
I pretty much kind of said and mostly agree with everything you were talking about earlier. I do want to make a little special shout out to the soundtrack of Streets of Rage 4, because while there's definitely some tracks where I'm kind of like, yeah, that track's fine, there's certain ones that still play in my head even when I haven't played the game in like 2 or 3 months. Specifically, I think it's level 2 when you're in the cop precinct, and when the music syncs up, when the bars open up and a bunch of enemies like come out of their cells, like, and then it's like, brow, brow, brow. Like, it's so cool.
It is. That's a really high point in that level for sure.
It is. I love that level. I think it's my favorite level in the game in general. So that was like a moment that really stood out to me, and it's one of those things of Streets of Rage 4 that I just wanted to pay special attention to. And just, we didn't talk about too much, but it's like, graphically, I still think like this is one of the best looking games of like 2020, obviously not for its polygon pushing, but because there's so many like interesting things with lighting going on in this, reflecting on the characters and everything, and they still being 2D character art, like it still looks really, really amazing. That's why when I got my PS5, I was like, I want to boot up Streets of Rage 4 just to see it again. Yeah, and like I guess like everything else we kind of touched upon, I do really obviously take your time, but aside from that balance patch, it's like I just want some sort of news about DLC, but that's just me being a gamer just wanting the thing now Mount Splashmore. But I just, one new character would just be so sick. Like, just give me another reason to play through it again. Whatever it is, it's probably going to be, worth the wait, obviously. But like, it's just one of those things where I'm like, just give me a bit more. That's all I need. I don't need a sequel right away. Don't rush that. But yeah, I just want to play more of it. And I unlocked all the characters by the end of it, so I'm kind of good there. And some I don't really even have that much interest to play through a second time. But like, give me Estelle, give me Streets of Rage 4 Max, give me Rue. I'll play as Rue. I'll play as a new Streets of Rage 4 Rue. I'm down with that. So almost anything would be enough to get me to boot it up again. But yeah, aside from that, just like everything we said before, I always knew the game was going to be like good, but I didn't think I would like it as much as I did, especially after playing the first version of it at PAX East, where I thought it was good, but I was like, there's one or two things that seems a little off there, but most of them were all fixed in the end. So
Yeah, it's truly an excellent beat 'em up, an excellent game by any standard, honestly. So, yeah, I feel you. Still great. The way you spoke about the extra characters, by the way, sure made it sound like you haven't played through the whole game as Shiva, which you should do because Shiva is so fucking powerful, actually. But he can't use weapons. Okay. He's great.
Oh, okay. No, I actually did not do as Shiva, and I really should have, but
yeah, you got to do Shiva. He's because of course he was just a boss character in Streets 3, right? So he never had a full character art set, so they have maintained that in that he can't pick up weapons or anything. He can still use healing items, but no weapon access for Shiva. And in exchange, he's quite strong. So
right, okay. So yeah, then throwing back to you for your number 4.
Number 4 would not be a Game of the Year 2020 list without The Last of Us Part 2 appearing somewhere, right? So I'm just going to put this out there. I actually really heavily debated including this at all because I'm not really a fan of how the dialogue around the game has evolved. So if you don't like the game, I will simply ask that you can try to be nice about it in the comments down below to ourselves and to your fellow commenters. I understand that a lot of people don't like some of the stuff in and around the game. That's fair. I liked it a lot. I played through the game twice. It's a really remarkable game, and it is also a really fucking huge game. I don't know, you haven't finished it, but I don't know if you've heard about how...
I haven't started it, but I have no concept of how long it's supposed to be, because the first one was like, what, 10, 12 hours, something like that?
The first one's actually longer than that. Let me just...
Oh, okay.
I'll even get you a number, actually. If we're using How Long to Beat, we may as well keep using it. Yeah, on How Long to Beat, the first game is clocked at 15 and a half hours.
Okay, so yeah, a little bit more.
So
how much longer is this then?
Okay, the second game, How Long to Beat, has it clocked at 24 hours.
Ooh, okay.
Dude, this game straight up more or less has 2 campaigns stitched together. Okay. It's insane how big this game is. It is indeed a game, a type of scale that you don't get with no human cost incurred, unfortunately.
right.
Not something I'm happy about, on the other hand. But this game is just the latest insanely lavish Naughty Dog adventure game. Everything you've come to expect from their stuff is here in force, and arguably just as good or better. Their patented Naughty Dog character controller has continued to improve. Your protagonists feel better than ever. They have an amazing range of action. Being able to crawl around is something that I didn't expect to be a big deal, but it's actually a really nice little addition. Jumping as well, something that Nathan Drake could always do, but Joel never had access to, was something that I found really made a difference in how they could design the stages.
Right.
On that note, you go to a bunch of interesting locales, and they have a lot of nice, varied combat interactions involving multiple factions, sometimes at the same time, which can result in some really cool, emergent gameplay situations where you decide to take advantage of one group in order to overcome another group, for example.
Okay.
Narratively, I understand why and how this game is divisive. Personally, I really liked what they were going for. I think they executed on it really well. I think it has a very plain message about how, just endlessly seeking revenge isn't really a good thing for you. Some people feel like it went on for too long and it didn't need to spend that long to get the message across. I think that's fair. Some people feel like it's sort of suffering porn. I also think that's fair. Personally, I'm totally down with that. So I enjoyed watching how far it went. I enjoyed seeing the game continue for an additional 3 hours in a frankly extremely dark finale that went further than I expected.
I do think that there's something to be said about, a game, a series, because all of them a lot of games try to be everything to everyone. Like an Assassin's Creed game will have jokes in it. It'll be like, hey, it's a me, Mario, and then they'll have something dark happen like 10 minutes afterwards. So I really do think, I have not played Last of Us 2 at all, but like I do think there's something to be said about a series trying to cater to that, like something that is quite dark and doesn't really, try to waver from that. I think, if that's not what people wanted, then that's fine too. But I do think there is a value in one series saying, well, no, we do want to push it to show the extremes of situations. So
Yeah.
I think that's like to be appreciated, and it definitely isn't something like a lot of people wanted, especially in 2020. I think that kind of affected that a little bit, where people could go, well, I don't want to feel like that. Well, that's fine. Don't
Yeah, that's
don't
fair.
play it. Whatever it is, or you can say your piece on it. But again, I haven't played it, so maybe it does go a bit too far that I would play it and go like, oh,
It
I don't
goes
know
far.
about that.
It goes
Okay.
far because it gets to a moment where you're like, stop now.
Yeah. Okay.
Like you're good. You've done you went to try to get your revenge and stuff happened and you're at home now and this is as happy as you're ever going to be.
Right.
And then it goes further and it's great. I think it's really bold that they decided to go further there, although I completely accept the criticism of beyond that just being suffering porn. I think it's a realistic depiction of someone of the flaws that people have and how, sometimes you make the wrong decisions for yourself because you're so compelled and compromised by your emotions. We don't always operate as perfect individuals who always make the smartest choice for ourselves. And,
Right.
It's not like in a Japanese anime where I'm just like, just talk with each other. It's like, it's revenge. It's ceaseless feelings of revenge and desiring, trying to hurt them the way they hurt you. And in the final scenario, having a character who's very close to you come back and say, hey, we're not done. We have to keep revenging. It shows the pressure that the outside world can have on those feelings as well. And,
Okay.
anyway, I thought it was really good. Again, we've seen other stories like this. They're not treading new ground necessarily, but I thought the execution was really, really lovely in that regard. I don't think the whole story from start to finish is impeccable, or there aren't things that I would have not preferred other ways. But the broad strokes I really loved. I really thought were quite good. I like seeing the repercussions to Joel's actions. That
Mm-hmm.
was a really good place to start the story off on, and it's hard sometimes, and it's sad sometimes. Like, seeing the positions some of the characters are in genuinely makes me feel sad sometimes. But I mean, I think that's why it was so good. It would have been really easy to just do another Joel and Ellie go on an adventure to do good thing, or debatably good thing in the end, right? Whatever happened with Joel at the end of The Last of Us, whether that's a good thing or not, I mean, who's to say? Depends on who you ask, right? But it would have been really easy to just kind of repeat that, and I think it was really bold of them to not repeat that. Evidently, a lot of people don't like that they didn't. That's fair. It's different. I'm not gonna try to tell you that this is the same flavor of The Last of Us that you're used to.
When you like a word that goes hand in hand with bold is divisive. So
Yes.
when you start to do things like that, there's always going to be blowback, and I totally get that. There's lots of movies, games, franchises that'll do something bold, and while I appreciate it, there is a certain like amount where you can only push it so far in a different direction, or play with like a player bases of fans' expectations where they go, oh well, that's not what I wanted to do. And I'm sure they knew when they made decisions that they're like, well, there's some people are gonna like this, but sticking to your vision is harder and harder to do, especially in the video game industry when there's a lot of pressure from publishers and whoever to make something safer. So it is very interesting and like commendable that they were allowed to do that stuff. Again, I don't know like some of the details of the story stuff. I know the broad strokes as well, but I still think that stuff is like really interesting. It does not happen very often.
No, for sure.
So it's a nice example of that actually, being for artists to be able to do what they want, even if that didn't result in like a lot of people liking it, unfortunately.
So anyway, great game. I liked it a lot. Closing thoughts. I really appreciate that the world has video games, and you get to see all of these pre-2013 or September 2013 video game systems. Ellie's got a PS3 and she's big into it, and she's got a bunch of Uncharted titles. There's a character with a lavishly modeled Vita, and she's playing Hotline Miami on it, which would have just come out like months before
the servers went down in the world. I guess.
Yeah. I remember. I might have the dates a little crossed, but I did look it up to see if that makes sense with the canon of the world. And sure enough, Hotline Miami would have just come out right before everything went bad. So I thought that was really cute. It almost, there are these collectibles in the game that are these little trading cards, and I didn't feel very strongly about them at all. After the first 2 or 3, I hardly looked at them. I pick them up, see the art once, and put them away. And it almost had me wishing that instead of trading cards, Ellie would find like PS3 games or Vita games and be like, whoa, this looks cool. Oh, I can't wait to play Reality Fighters on the PlayStation Vita. I can't wait to play PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale. I know I like Nate from Uncharted, I would have really been into that.
It's not even the first time they've done stuff like that, because you had that what was it, playable crash section in Uncharted 4.
Uncharted 4,
so they like doing that stuff.
That would have been really cute, yeah. So that's probably the only thing I really didn't feel anything about was those trading cards. So if we do have a third game, please explore the video game world a bit better. I would like for characters to be talking about Prototype again. Is all I'm saying. So anyway, that's for me. That is The Last of Us Part 2 at number 4.
Okay, well, here's another game where we don't have to spend too much time on it, because it is Hyrule Warriors, Age of the Calamity, Age of God's Slayer Bowser. So here is an example of something that I did multiple times whilst playing Age of Calamity, is my mouth simply opening up in slack-jawed befuddlement as 32 new points of interest would open up on the Hyrule map after doing a story mission. Every time that happens and it just doesn't stop, I was like, there's a bug now. This amount of stuff cannot be opening. Like, it's just insane.
Much. Yeah.
I want to say there was like 3 instances of when I was playing it would happen. It would just keep happening. Like, most of the time you do a story mission, maybe 5 points of interest, maybe 10 at the most. But then like those 2 or 3 times were like, I was so shocked that I didn't count, but at the 3rd time it started happening, I counted, and like I think it was something like 32. I was just blown away. But yeah, I want to say I vastly, there's one area where it doesn't do as well, but I vastly preferred this to the original Hyrule Warriors, and I really liked Hyrule Warriors. Just everything from the expanded move sets and like doing the flurry strikes, not only the weather affinities like lightning and ice and fire, but coupled with the what's it called? The tablet powers.
Oh, the iPad.
The iPad powers. Yeah, what is their fucking name? I don't know. Like Cryonis and all that. Whatever. The Sheikah tablet,
the Sheikah slate
stuff. The slate. Yeah. Thank you. The slate powers, and everyone having the variants of the slate powers when they use them. Like when that kind of dawned on me, because I didn't get it originally from looking at videos before the launch of the game. But when I actually started going, oh, wait, that controls completely differently. Like that bomb reacts differently in so-and-so's hands or Urbosa's hands versus Link's. I was like, oh, wow, that's way cooler. Like, I almost was surprised they went to that length. I would kind of think that they wouldn't even bother. Like, just make it all play the same. And that in itself made the game so much more engrossing from a combat standpoint. And, yeah, sorry, you're gonna.
You may have had the same early experience as me then, like when you first play as Zelda and you throw out a bomb and you're like, excuse me, what the fuck is that? Like, Zelda has this like walking bomb that I believe you get to control a little bit. Like, yeah, it's super fun to see that develop. It was an exciting element for each character too, because it wasn't exactly predictable what they would have. So
yeah, you had no idea, because like, what is this monk? That's in I forget his name, but like the monk character, like what the fuck is he gonna do with a bomb? Like you'd look at a bomb, like I don't even know what a bomb is, but it's all that stuff that really just made the moment to moment like combat so much more engrossing, because it's still the basic Warriors setup of X and Y combos and everything, but it was just expanded in such smart ways. Like, is there as many characters in this as there is Hyrule Warriors or many other Warrior games? Like, no, not really, but it's one of those things of, yeah, but there's a lot more you can do with them, and their attack animations are so much more inventive and crazy just due to all the characters they picked. The area where, of course, we talked about this a bit, where it doesn't perform as well, is in its performance. This is one of those games where it's the first one where I go, a Switch Pro needs to happen eventually, because it never got to the point where I was taking hits or negatively impact like the combat. It would just make it turn into a slideshow for like 1 or 2 seconds when you're fighting in a real, like, to be fair to the game, really heavily populated. But you could see that they really wanted to push the console, plus with the art style, all the particle effects that are going on in pretty much every stage, that I'd be surprised if it ran completely smoothly, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
But it didn't make me go like, oh, fuck this, or like, I've played games like that, but it was just enough where like I noticed it to be like, like I don't know if they've done subsequent patches since I've beaten it that just help in performance, but I don't think they have. I don't believe talk so, about it. Yeah. But I was addicted to Hyrule Warriors for like a good couple of weeks, just not really wanting to stop playing. And there's tiny other things like, you know, if I want to farm a particular type of item to level up something, like there's no replay function for a mission. It's only, you can only replay if you've failed that mission. But when, you know, there's like a good amount of farming if you want to do it. But if you finish a mission, it would be really cool if like it just said replay mission.
Oh, I
and
see. Just to
jump back in because
immediately.
then you have to go through like another loading screen, a main menu, not the main menu, but then like the Hyrule Warriors, Hyrule map menu, then select it, then select your character. Like, you know, you have to do that all over again. But I mean, it's a minor thing because I didn't do it too often, but I did it enough where I was like, it's a little bit annoying. But
I feel ya.
and that and Rivali, just no patch them out if you can. And that's basically all my complaints. There were some characters I didn't really use that much. I was like, they're not for me. But there was always like the character after that was like, oh yeah, I'll play as you. I didn't think I would like Sidon, like, because I already Mifa. I'm like, okay, well, I have Mifa. I don't really need to fuck with Sidon. But Sidon controls like way differently, like not way differently, but like he's fun in of himself to use.
I think they did a good job keeping the young characters different from the old champions.
Yeah, and I was shocked by it because I stayed away from most of the young characters. Like I did, you know, a mission or two, but when I did actually play as them, and I was like, oh wait, that is really cool, or that animation's really awesome, or that like particular quirk is fun. So aside from that, it's like I didn't really have a big issue with the story stuff. I there wasn't really anything that struck me as like, oh, I could have used something different there, but it didn't, like, it wasn't the highlight of the game either. And I, you know, obviously being a prequel to Breath of the Wild, there's only so much you can do. But I really, I don't know if it's even feasible, but to do more Hyrule Warriors within Zelda, because, well, where else do you go from here? But I would feel a little disappointed if they went back to Hyrule Warriors 1, where it's like, oh, there's a bunch of dimensional rifts opening up and there's just, everyone's here. Like a couple of Warriors games do, like Tecmo All-Stars, or like just portals opening up, everyone's here.
Even like, this game does that once, briefly.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, this game does kind of do its own, like there's portals and everyone's here, but it's within the context of that game world. Like if they're going to do more Hyrule Warriors, like I would love just a Twilight Princess one or a Wind Waker one. You know, I doubt they're going to do that, but like I would be down for that. Maybe a tad more than
Wand of Gamelon Muso.
It sucks. Like, and I still never got my Groose either.
No,
like,
that's true, eh?
Like, so maybe it begs to be explored again, like just an everyone's here style Hyrule Warriors, just to get my Groosey in there. But I still really, really enjoy, like, I enjoyed this way more than I thought I would. I thought, like, I'll like it a little bit more than regular Hyrule Warriors, but I wound up like really loving it.
Yeah, I was really worried after I found Fire Emblem Warriors a little bit of a weaker entry.
Me too.
And then I thought Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 was really weak. I really did not enjoy Ultimate Alliance 3. Mm-hmm. So I was a little concerned that, like...
I forgot that was made by Team Ninja or like Omega Force.
Yeah, one of them.
It was made by Team Ninja.
But I was a little concerned that, like, oh no, like, does this bode well for new Hyrule Warriors? But no, yeah, in the end, it's up there with the first one. Not sure which one I like better. Granted, I played the first one for like 5 times longer across 3 systems. So
I forgot about that. I own all 3 versions as well. So
yeah, so we're still playing. My girlfriend and I are still playing this one together, and we still have many hours ahead of us. But yeah, it's wonderful. I'm glad my concerns did not at all bear fruit. So I'm glad you liked it a lot as well. Did you play it in handheld mode at all?
I primarily played docked, but I did play in handheld too, but not too often, just depending on the situation. But like I would say, like 90% of the time I play docked.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to try handheld because we've always been doing co-op, but
Yeah.
I would like to see. It's always
I
nice
think
to see such pretty games on such a sharp little screen. So
yeah, I think there's like almost too much stuff going on in the way that the art style is with kind of cell shading that Breath of the Wild does, is that it much everything is a lot easier to parse on a big screen rather than a small one. Unlike the first Hyrule Warriors where it was very clean and like colorful and things, not to say that this doesn't, but the characters stood out a bit more. So it was kind of easier to keep track of, at least for me, in portable mode.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
Yeah, that is my number 3.
Cool. Number 3. Recently, I was watching top streamer Maximilian, and I was introduced to a game called Hades. On his stream.
Really?
Yes. Max.
How do you spell that? Hades.
It's like the word Hades.
Hades, okay.
Like so the brand Hanes, but with a D.
Let me write this down.
No, yeah. Hades.
Right.
Hades is... I felt like I wasn't sure if I should include this or not, because it actually, all jokes aside, it came out like in early access, 2018? Was it
and 2019. Well...
I can't... Because it was the end of 2018, I'm pretty sure.
I think in Epic Game Store it was out maybe in 2018, but then it's really hard. Hey, spoilers everyone, I don't have Hades in my list for the exact reverse reason.
Right, exactly.
But I think it was in Epic Game Store for a year. Then it was in Steam Early Access at the end of 2019.
So anyway, because where I'm going with this is because I bought it the night the Epic Game Store opened. When they announced it at the Game Awards. So I guess it must have been 2018. So I felt very conflicted as to whether I should include this. I only played like a very, very brief amount of it back then because I could see how early it was. And I was like, you know what? I'm just happy to support Supergiant.
Right.
So I finally came back to play it when the Switch version came out. And by the way, I guess I should just get this right out of the way. What an incredibly good port. It's awesome that Hades runs as well and as consistently as it does on the Switch.
The only time it doesn't is in the Witches' Coven mini boss fight when there's like, 10, 15 witches and they're all shooting the purple orbs. But I swear that's the only place where it really drops, where it becomes a problem. But other than that, yeah, you're right.
Even under the heaviest pressures that I saw, there was never a moment where I was like, oh, I can't play this. Now, granted, I have the Platinum Trophy for Resident Evil Revelations 2 on the Vita, which like struggles to hit 20 on a good day. So maybe I'm not the best authority for this, but Hades, the Switch version is super lovely. Anyway, Hades is like an amazing little action roguelike. Just like a lot of games on this list, it doesn't really reinvent the wheel in any way.
No, it doesn't.
But it's so rock solid, and it's got a lot of nice little design decisions that kind of push you into that loop of like, oh, just one more run over and over again. So the combat, you enter the underworld with one of, was it 5 or 6 weapons? Anyway, one of a certain amount of weapons, and each weapon has a different play style. Most of them are melee, but there's a couple range preference weapons in there. Yep. And there's at least one weapon where there's 2 weapons where it's viable to do both. I would say, or one or the other. And you go in and you do your run. And if you die, you go back. And if you succeed, well, I'll let you find that out for yourself, I guess. But you go back and you repeat the loop over and over again. Where Hades' real success comes from is its ability to constantly give you nice little meaningful boosts for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
There are so many different little intricate ways to upgrade and improve your character. It takes many, many runs to get anywhere close to what you would call maxed out normally. You can upgrade the place your character lives in, which actually has tangible benefits on your playthroughs in the levels. Eventually you can fish, and gathering these fish will give you rare resources at an accelerated rate. You get these extremely lavish little voiced scenes with a wide array of characters at a relatively high frequency, but for an incredibly long amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like they don't run out of stuff to say for
They don't.
like 50 plus hours or some shit. It's really impressive. Most impressive of those scenes actually, or sorry, the most impressive thing about those scenes to me is that I feel like I know a lot about a lot of these characters, but most of the scenes with these characters are incredibly short. They manage to cram a great density of personality and unique traits into very small amounts of text.
Yeah, because every character has a certain way of speaking. It's not just down to their voice acting. It's like they have these little like speech patterns or little things that they call zag. And I like it when you have like not very long scenes, but they're spaced out over a long time. Those little things like add up to give the character like a lot of character, especially when they only have one piece of art usually to get across everything about them. So like you're right in that every decision kind of made here. And I assume this was done not like magic overnight because it spent 2 years combined in both early access on Epic Game Store and Steam. Like that's how they got to this point. Like
they just fucking worked it hard.
Yeah, it's just that's all. It just took time, but their base, like just the combat feels good, so that's fine. But now let's work on everything else around it, and everything supplements the combat and goes into making you feel a little bit, tiny bit stronger. And I think I said this in another video. It's like I really like Dead Cells. Dead Cells is very fun. Its action is really good, but once you die, it's like, well, now I just do it again. Versus like there's at least other things to do and consider when you die in Hades. Like, I could do this over here. I can fuck around with a weapon, like, pressure free. I can, learn more about that character. There's always something else. Whereas like a lot of roguelikes, not to say like some don't, but like a lot of roguelikes don't like consider what you do upon death. It's just like, no, go straight back into it with nothing,
The size and the scope and the perceived importance of Hades' post-death experience is just so well considered and executed. Indeed, you do spend most of your time exploring and mostly fighting your way through the underworld. But like when you die, they do such a good job with that post-death experience that once you get over that initial lump in your throat of like, man, that was a good run, you immediately look forward to the stuff that you're going to be seeing in a minute.
Exactly.
I'm going to see Dusa. This is going to be a really good time. I can't believe how hot Dusa is. I can't wait to talk to her again. Like characters like, say, Dusa really just jump out as things to look forward to, even when you've failed in the gameplay. Although, of course, the death is a part of the gameplay, so whether it's a failure or not, when really the larger game is, larger than just every single run, it's the sum of its parts, it's the whole aggregate, is a whole other debate, but they do a really good job making you enjoy, or getting you to enjoy, both halves. I call them both halves, but it's really like 90%, 10%. They just cram so much into that 10%.
Yeah, because that 10% is built to feed into that 90%. So they feel both like two halves, but they're also inseparable.
It's like it's the cherry on top of your cake, but like they didn't just grab like a maraschino cherry. They went to the Garden of Eden and they went to the cherry tree that grows one every 10,000 years, and they put that cherry every single time at the end of your gameplay experience.
I did have a small question though. Was there a particular weapon? Because that's really what makes the runs like really open up, is that, a weapon, just that one weapon change really can make things feel distinct and fresh. And that's why I think a lot of the combat and going through it over and over again is like completely manageable and doesn't feel that repetitive, because you have a completely new, fully fleshed out tool to do it with. So was there one you really enjoyed?
I think my favorite, bit of a simple choice, but it was the shield was my favorite. I definitely enjoyed having better survivability because maybe I'm a bitch like that, but I found it fun to have abilities that I could like bounce the shield off of enemies and afflict things onto them and such. Ultimately, though, and this is something we didn't talk about, the game has this great little mechanic where whenever you want to go on a new run, it kind of suggests to you a weapon by saying, hey, if you use this weapon, you'll get more resources. You'll get better rewards. So it kind of, points you towards a random weapon that you didn't choose. And I don't think they do the same one twice in a row either. So actually, I played as the suggested weapon every single time.
Oh, okay.
So I feel like I have a fair spread of experience with the weapons. I think the one I played with the least was the adamant rail, because you get it so much later in the game, of course.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, the shield I think was my favorite. I want to say the fists as well were high up there, but I had a really hard time actually being successful with the fists, like actually finishing a run with the fists. So maybe that one's a little lower. But yeah, all the weapons are great. They're very well considered. I didn't really feel... I felt like, yes, I had an easier time with the shield because of the survivability boosts of being able to block stuff effectively. But otherwise, I didn't particularly feel like any weapon was over or underpowered, really.
No, I think it's just how they handle is like the difference. 'Cause, I don't think any of them like functionally could be underpowered given how the rest of the game like works. But if you were to take a guess, what do you think my favorite weapon was?
Your favorite weapon? I don't know, the spear?
The shield, actually, as well.
It's also the shield.
Second might be the fists, then spear, then sword, and at the bottom would be the arrows. And I think for the bow and arrow, it's kind of like I just like got bad luck with what I like with to support it. I mean, did I beat a run with the arrows? I did eventually, but like and it's weird because when I watched Max stream it, he was like, yeah, bow and arrow for me. So that's crazy because that's not what I would expect at all. I would expect him to love the fists.
Yeah,
just because
the bow and arrow is so satisfying
games.
when you have like a really powerful strong attack combination, and you get right up close to the enemies and hit them with what is effectively a shotgun blast every time. Yeah, it's cool. I guess we didn't talk about this either, but the build variety is lovely, and characterizing the builds as like actual characters who don't just exist in the mythos of the world, but actually speak directly to Zagreus and have tangible relationships with each other is really nice, really tasteful stuff. It makes me think of in Transistor, where all of your abilities had people tied to them, except executed so much better. In Transistor, you kind of just get to learn about the person a little bit, and that's the end of it. But in here, they're characters. They fucking talk to you.
It's fun just saying amazing. It's fun just saying I'm rocking a Dionysus and Demeter build. It's just like that doesn't mean anything to most people, but like anyone that knows was just like, oh yeah, that's really good. I don't even know if that would be a good combination. I like that. That's probably actually bad, but
getting to lean on the Greek stuff probably helps them a lot too in that regard. Yeah, you got some amazing names for stuff. So.
Like an Ares and an Athena would do really well, just because you're like you have a lot of defense, but then you're having like a burst of damage happening, so that is kind of a defensive sort of build. But yeah, just having your builds kind of be characters and talking to you, that's a very interesting way to put it. I've never heard it said that way, but you're totally on the hit the nail on the head there.
It's good. There's appeal to it. Do I want to make... There's rooms where you have to decide between one family member or the other, and one of them gets angry at you if you make the wrong decision. Now, in terms of gameplay, you run it back immediately, or in terms of narrative, sorry, you run it back immediately. But it's still fun to have that situation, rather than just pick a gun and then the room fills with enemies and then you get the second gun,
Yeah.
They do an incredibly good job weaving in little narrative hooks everywhere. I can't recommend this game enough. It's super
Neither
good.
can I. I literally can't.
Nope, clearly. And Max played it eventually. Finally, your crusade, your unholy crusade succeeded.
So
And
I
you
found
can
out
rest
later that
easy.
Max was like, I hated you so much for suggesting I play Criticom that I just didn't want to like listen to you for anything else. So I
Yeah,
just kind of wanted to ignore you for a while, and then eventually I knew I was going to play it. So I was like, that's fair.
that's good. Yeah, no, I mean, he played his part.
He played his part to a T.
Exactly. That's my number 3. So I will pass it over to you.
Okay, that was fun because I figured I think you told me Hades was there, but I didn't know, but I wasn't 100% sure if it would stick there or where you put it. So that
Mhm.
was fun. My number 2 is insert Doom comic rip and tear joke because it is Doom Eternal time.
Mm.
I actually there isn't a whole lot to say about Doom Eternal other than I was a little worried going into it because I was like, maybe lightning won't strike twice. Maybe they'll do something to fuck it up. And to some people, they kind of did. I think I was telling you a bit about this. Is that like, yeah, they didn't really rest on their laurels with Doom Eternal, even though they did in some ways. But it's core changing of its combat loop where you have to strictly play the way that they want it. Some people really didn't like it, which was you need to glory kill for health. You need to chainsaw for ammo, and you need to like burn or use your like little turret on the
Mhm.
Doomslayer's shoulder to get armor. And you need to do those constantly. And that's how you get good at this game. And if you do get good at this game, then it's amazing. You reach this level in your head of just doing it like blah 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 blah, like just you're not even thinking about it. The problem is that if you take a break from playing Doom Eternal for any amount of time, like a day,
Mhm.
you're gonna lose a little bit of that and have to go back to it. But it is a game you can't just play a little bit, come back to a week later. It does require that amount of precision and muscle memory to keep doing it because the game doesn't pull any punches. Even like I think I played on not the easiest difficulty, but the second I think hurt me plenty. I forget what it's called, but because yeah, that was the right difficulty for me because you put it up than that, and I was just dying too much. But everything else about this game, its graphics just stunning. It looked next gen when it wasn't. Everything about its environment and level design is like so much better, so much more varied than the first game. Like I think it was kind of the highlight. I liked Doom 2016's levels and searching for items and things and
Mhm.
little bonuses, but I think it was done way better here. Every single level is just a completely different place. Like, oh, there's all these long jumps and these kind of nail biting platforming sections over here, and there's like this gigantic chasm, and there's greenery everywhere, and then this level is just like viscera and gore everywhere, and then this one is like this futuristic base with tortured like Doom 2016 is just very Mars to me, and it's
I think
it's one
so,
of
yeah.
it's one of those things that I much prefer here, and just amazing pacing with the levels where it's not those gore nests that just make the waves and waves and waves come in. It's usually one wave or two, and then you have some linear sections and then an open section. Like it's so much more better pacing with levels, and it kept me like constantly invested. In terms of like downsides, I know that the story continues in the DLC, the that I have not started, but they did this in Doom 2016, and I was kind of disappointed that they did it again. Is that the game's ending just kind of ends? Like you literally defeat the final boss. There's a camera shot of something and cut to credits.
Mhm.
I
So is
didn't.
the ancient gods picking up after the
Yeah,
okay, cool.
yeah. So I
That's an
get how
improvement at least.
I get how it continues into the DLC, but that doesn't mean you can't make more of a significant ending to the base game, like like a little bit more. I'm not asking for like a 10-hour ending or anything, but I was a little unfulfilled because the last boss fight is extremely epic, and you did that in the first game where they had a last boss fight, and then the game just kind of ends, and it just says like Doom 2 coming soon to stores, and you're just like, eh. So I was kind of disappointed they did that again, and I will play the DLC, and I'm sure it's a minor thing overall, but if someone, either doesn't have the funds to drop on the DLC or just doesn't want to, then, it kind of sucks if you're looking for a significant ending, because the story, there's more story in here than ever. And personally, I really like the story, and they have I won't say, but they have like a story pivot / twist like hours before this, and that would have been a killer thing to end on, to place that story bit at the end. But they showed their hand a little bit early, and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. You could have left that at the end, and it would have been like really cool and a satisfying little bit to end on. But it is what it is, and it's a minor thing. I personally really enjoyed the story. You can mash through a lot of it. You don't have to see it. I've seen some people say like, "Oh, the story is terrible." I'm like, sure, I guess. I thought it was pretty cool, but and the last little thing is that the Doom Slayer's little space fort that you walk into and look at stuff and you can unlock stuff. It is without a doubt one of the worst design areas I've ever seen in a video game. I don't mean to be harsh, but after spending I haven't looked at how long to beat, but it's at least a 10-hour, if not more, maybe a 20-hour FPS, and I never got used to the layout.
Oh man, that's like a little hub area, right?
It's a little hub area, and I just never got used to it because so many parts are just shiny metal. And you even have a fucking map, but I shouldn't have to be looking through a map to navigate this area the 80th time I'm here, and I just never got used to it. And I was always like, where the fuck is that one costume I need to unlock? And I would just go in circles just looking for it. I don't have the best navigation skills in the world, but I had it enough for these levels that I'm clearing out of enemies. I don't think I ever got lost in the actual levels, but I always got lost in Doom Slayer's space fort that's in the shape of his head, I always want to say. I always wish it was, but that's literally like the only sort of negative I have on the game that's a bit more prevalent than just the ending. I just never got used to that layout, and it frustrated me, but at the end of the day, you're not doing combat. I'm not dying because of it. So again, it was really minor, but I would have gone into the DLC right away if I didn't have other games to have finished for this video that we're doing right now. But right. I think I'm gonna kind of play, because it's only part 1. There's gonna be a part 2 of that DLC, so I do want to get in on that at some point. But yeah, really really enjoyed it. I'm glad that they kind of, for me, they at least exceeded my expectations, and I'm looking forward to more. I don't know if it needs a Doom 3. I think maybe id can possibly do something brand new, go back to Quake. Hexen Heretic, if they can figure out who the fuck owns Hexen or Heretic, I don't know. I don't know if we, depending on the ending of the DLC, I'm not sure if we need to, because you did a lot here,
Covered a lot of ground in this one.
You covered a lot of ground, and they did enough that was vastly different, but they kept what worked. So yeah, I really enjoyed Doom Eternal.
Cool. I'm keen to play it. I bought the PS4 version on that really good 66.6% off sale they
nice had. I get the reference.
I know, right? Good stuff. So I'm waiting patiently for that free PS5 upgrade, but boy, I'm not gonna lie, the Switch version was mighty tempting looking. It seems like an amazing port. So
yeah, aside from the things that they obviously had to change, I kind of thought they wouldn't do it this time. I thought Doom 2016 was manageable to do, but when I was playing through the Xbox One X version of it, and I got it on PC a little bit later, I was like, and the Switch version had not been seen yet for a while. They had kind of gone dark on that for a bit, so I was like, how are they even gonna, this is actually gonna possibly not be a good port, but they managed to do it. I watched the Digital Foundry video on it. They fucking did it. So
it was absolutely remarkable. So
yeah.
I guess congrats to them too. Cool. Okay.
So you're number 2.
Number 2, Demon's Souls for PlayStation 5. Just like Astro's Playroom, and just like Hades, and just like 13 Sentinels, I was also wondering, should I put this on my list? This is just a PS3 game from 2009, but again, and I cannot emphasize enough how much this is just that game again. For all the good things and for all the bad things. Not that there are many bad things. It's lovely, and it is a super, super lavish remake. It's hard to even call it a remake. It's complicated. Yeah. You'll have to look it up. But I'm going to use the term remake, even though it may not necessarily be exactly the correct one. So please just auto-correct that to the right one in your head. It's super lavish remake of the first proper Souls title. I played Demon's Souls in 2009 when it came out with my roommate at the time, and we had an amazing experience with it. I finished it a few times back then, but I hadn't done a full playthrough myself again until just now with this version of Demon's Souls. And after I finished this game, I immediately turned on my PS3 and booted up the original Demon's Souls just to see. And I don't want to go back to the old Demon's Souls.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
This is the version that I will always want to play in the future. The only reason I'll be going back to the old one is like for the sake of, curiosity, or like I want to play the original one. But for actual playability and having a good timiness, this one is where it's at. It is so good. The very few visual sacrifices in terms of some design changes on enemies, like the fat official, are just fine alongside the thousands and thousands of things that they've really faithfully maintained from the original. There are a lot of really tasteful little changes that they've done. I know some people are a little conflicted on when you pick up items that exceed your carry weight, you get to send them away to a storage pile. I like that a lot because it means I'm no longer having to put my whole inventory away to go pick up brushwood armor. But I get it. Like, you're sacrificing that arguably obtuse difficulty that some people like for slightly better usability. There's a lot of things in the game where they've made little adjustments like that, where it used to be this way, now it's a little smoother, thank God. And I think they're all tasteful, and I enjoy them all. There are some fun new rings thrown into the mix. As someone who has done my time walking through the swamp slowly, I was very happy to find a ring that allowed me to run quickly through the swamp. Yes, it made the swamp much easier than before, but I found it really enjoyable, so that's all that counts. I played through this version of the game 2 times and change to get all the trophies and such, and I watched my girlfriend complete it once fully, and it was excellent. It was just as good as I remembered, better in some areas as well. I can't recommend this game enough if you have a PS5, and if you're listening to it like today, if you have a PS5, you should probably go get it, because it's really good, and there aren't that many other exclusives right now. But if you're listening to this 10 years from now, if you have a PS5 and you like the Souls games, don't miss Demon's Souls. It's so good. Some of the ideas in the game are a little nascent compared to later Souls games, but it still gets that. It still delivers the awesome.
Well, it still delivers what Soul fans want. Yeah.
You're still getting that. I still personally find Demon's Souls narrative to be quite a bit weaker than a lot of the future Souls games. This is to say nothing of Bloodborne, which is, particularly strong, but like I find even Demon Souls like suffers a little compared to some of the weaker stuff and like the first Dark Souls and such.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense given it's their first time making something like this,
Exactly. Yeah. For as much as King Fields is similar and such, like this was their first real go at it.
As much as Ninja Blade has a lot of similarities, like
yeah. I honestly I don't know if I have a lot to say on this. You've all watched plenty of Game of the Year videos that have Souls games in them at this point in time. This is the most basic Souls game there is, and it's still great. The world tendency system is like still too obtuse for its own good.
Yeah,
and they still don't really fully deliver on the world tendency system. In some worlds, it's like really underutilized, and I think that's kind of a shame. But it's fine, honestly.
Because I
really go ahead.
Yeah, no. You go ahead. You finish your thought.
I really, really, really hope. I really hope that Blue Point gets to work with From to make the 6th Archstone as DLC. At time of recording, we are January 2021. I don't think it's too late yet. I really hope that that's a thing that's going to happen.
I could see that.
I mean, frankly,
aware of that bit.
Even if it's just Blue Point on their own, I'll be more than happy. But it'd be lovely to have both of them. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I spoke over you.
No, it's okay. I was just gonna say, like, I actually did buy it a few weeks ago, and I maybe put an hour into it, and I was surprised at like how not like much easier, but I guess I was more acclimatized to. Because when it was new, I had played it like a little briefly and like, not that I hated it, but like I didn't understand what I was doing, obviously. But, having dipped into enough Souls games in the past and just like all the improvements on the technical side, just to make everything so much smoother and like, a little bit faster, blah, blah, blah. Maybe not faster, but like, just the improvements to frame rate in general can just make everything just feel a lot more pleasant to play. So I had to like stop and do other things. So I haven't really gotten that much into it. But I will say, like, when I was, a few months ago when I saw it at your place, back in like early November or like mid-November when you had gotten it, and I was watching you play, like, I didn't really get a full appreciation till like I was sitting really close to my TV and just going, because my couch is placed much closer to my TV, that I was just like, holy shit, this looks amazing, like just visually. Yeah. And it's so weird because it's like, it is a remake. It's using a lot of the same like underlying tech that the game used, but like it's just staggering how good it looks, and that like does a lot for me when you have these like old arts, not old art styles, but like the worlds that FromSoft makes. And, certainly the PS3 did its best at the time, but it's just amazing how much more horsepower can really do to bring out. I know there's some people that were like, oh, I don't like the changes they made to like that boss or this monster, or, I'm not like, but that's very like subjective thing. I just think whenever I see like side by sides, like I always prefer the PS5 version. I can understand some people like, oh, there's less gloominess there. I'm like, yeah, but that's what's the interesting thing about this remake is like it's never something that's kind of been attempted to this scale. Certainly the Shadow of the Colossus PS4 remake had a little bit of that discourse around it. So, some people saying, well, I kind of prefer the way the PS2 version looks. But it was just a little bit, but it was a lot more on this particular project. And I just find that's a very interesting conversation to even have in this day and age, when you can take games of a certain generation and re-up them. There is a little bit of discussion about, well, is that really to the spirit of the original? And I just find it's interesting to talk about.
No, it is. And I mean, there's certainly a good debate to be had. Like, should they have maintained, say, the enemy designs a little more faithfully? Maybe. sure, I won't even say that that's not necessarily like a totally valid and true and possibly winning argument, but like they maintained so much so well that I have a hard time being like actually actively down on it. It's such a good and faithful remake in so many ways. Again, remake not really the correct term, but you know what I mean. One thing that you brought up was the graphics and such, and I think I would have glossed over this, but yeah, this game's playability is dramatically improved. It did not have a solid 30 FPS lock on PS3, not even close. This game did not perform well or in a stable way. Certainly on PS3 and 360, frame rates fluctuated a lot more, and that was the standard at the time. Nowadays, a lot of people expect more consistent performance, and it's really nice that you can pop it into the performance mode and have an insanely consistent 60 FPS at this level of fidelity. It makes me appreciate, since this game was literally just built on the back of the original, they didn't reprogram everything. It impresses me a lot because just increasing the frame rate and getting the frame rate to be more stable and polishing it up in a few areas makes me appreciate how much better the game actually was than I remembered it. Because a lot of the jank that I was remembering, a lot of the imperfections and the roughness, I think after having played it another 2 times through, I think I'm like remembering bad frame rate experiences and situations in which effects would blow out the frame rate while I'm trying to get stuff done and I would fail. And, you know, again, I'm not one who's bothered too much by performance, but this was a game where my memories were betrayed, I think, by actually the performance in the original game. So it is lovely to have it at that at this sort of performance standard now.
Right.
By the way, if you haven't changed it to the performance mode, if you still have it in resolution mode, I highly encourage you to change it to the performance mode.
I believe that's what I set it on.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's cool.
And it is a little white.
On the PS5, there's actually, since we're talking about this, on the PS5 there's like OS level features like on the 360 used to have, where you can like default your things now.
Right, so you can set it so that all games will automatically default to like whatever mode you set, yeah?
Yeah, assuming they've hooked it up correctly on their end. So yeah, if you've hooked it up, it'll default. But yeah. Anyway, I don't know, a bit of a tangent. But,
that's fine.
It's so good. It has an active online multiplayer player base, which is kind of more than you can say for the original.
That's stuff I might not ever touch or mess with that much, but you know, it's nice that it's still like. Are you saying that like it's active like from last you know? Because I'd imagine people are still playing this all a bunch.
Well, no, it's definitely still active on PS5, but
I think
Demon's Souls PS3 has been down for a long time.
Yeah, I think they did stop that a few years back.
There were so many false ends, though. You remember it was going to go down.
And because of public outcry.
So I'm not actually. I don't want to say anything too definitive because I could be wrong, and they could have one day announced it'll be up forever.
Maybe.
I don't actually know. I think it's down. But,
I think it's down too.
This is active, and it's great, and it's lovely. And even if you don't mess with the online will mess with you at some point. So enjoy that. Demon's Souls has some really creative boss fights that future games in the series kind of shied away from a little. A lot of future games in the series focus on just making really good combat encounters, which, you know, maybe that's the right thing to do. But Demon's Souls has a lot of gimmick boss fights for better and for worse. But I will definitely say that the gimmick boss fights that are winners are real strong winners. Especially the online multiplayer one. Whenever you get to that boss, it's a very cool time. So yeah, that's my number 2. So I will throw it over to you to start wrapping this up.
My number 1 is Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Ooh.
And I think I at the start of this said said what I said, which was when it came to like my like 1 to maybe 4, I was kind of splitting hairs between all of them, because at a time I was thinking of putting Doom Eternal there, but at the end of the day, especially when it comes to like story and making a satisfying story, that also still amazingly is able to feed into another narrative altogether for a future Spider-Man game. But Miles Morales is kind of just edged out Doom Eternal, just because like I think I knew they were going to do this, but I think at the end of the day they did Insomniac did such an amazing job with Miles himself, his character, fleshing out his personal life, and making it feel really authentic, making the relationships he had with characters that were related to him and not related to him, and making it feel different compared to other things like, Into the Spider-Verse or the comics or, animated versions of Miles. So much like how they did with Peter Parker in regular Spider-Man PS4, that they did make this version of him feel, distinct enough where, I didn't feel like he was like a kind of bumbling kid like they did for most of Into the Spider-Verse. They, touch on a little bit at the very, very start of the game, but they do such a good job with him. And I loved him so much as a protagonist that's kind of what edged this game out for me over the other games, because if this was the first brand new Spider-Man game in years, like let's say Spider-Man 4 didn't exist, then this would be far and above my favorite game. But because this is, built off the back of Spider-Man PS4, and we've done a lot of of the stuff that the game presents here, like, stealth sections and the way web swinging feels, that would have been, amazing if this was the first brand new one. But because of that familiarity, that's kind of like, that's why this was fighting tooth and nail with Doom Eternal. But that story stuff that I mentioned before, then, I mix that in with like the Venom system of for the melee combat, of the Venom punches and all the moves that has. And like other really smart little changes, like letting you mix and match suit mods with different suits, which makes for a much more freer system to kind of play with what you want. The suits themselves, even though Miles only has like an infinitesimal amount of suits compared to like Peter's like repertoire of threads. But they're making a lot of brand new ones that are like super dope in this game. Like the one that has the the Daft Punk helmet.
Mm-hmm.
And
the Kamen Rider one's really nice.
The Kamen Rider, yeah, that one too. And just telling such a tight story that, I played a lot of Spider-Man games on my channel for like the last couple of years, and so often you'll find especially in the open world ones, you can tell when you get to the bit that's not important to the story. Like, I want to say that 3-4 hour chunk where, Dr. Octopus isn't around here anymore because there's only so much we could do because of the movie or because of, whatever reasons. And you just feel like you're in that section that's unimportant. Like, I kind of felt Miles Morales did not have that section. Even Spider-Man PS4 had that section, like any stealth sections with MJ. And Miles himself. Like, you could have gotten that across in a cutscene. There was no reason to like really have these stuff like that. And there's
Miles is so concise, honestly. Like...
there's such a thing as being too concise, and this just like gets out of that, where it just feels perfect, the story it's trying to tell.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think like I thought the story was going to end just before it did, and I was like, oh, it feels a little early to be coming up on the last mission. And then as I was swinging to the last mission, I got downed by a villain, and sure enough, there was actually something else right before the last mission.
I felt that exact same thing, like that really moment good. Where I was like, "What? Really? Oh,
that was a good moment, actually." Yeah, they did that character justice, I think.
Yeah.
Although I do hope they come back in the future. I think this game also like takes advantage, or not takes advantage, but I think the brevity of this game kind of helps it a little, because I also found that in Spider-Man PS4, there were a lot. There was like a bit too much repeated content for my liking. And the game's not super short. Certainly not like 80 hours or anything. It's not super short. But I found Miles was a much nicer length, honestly. By the time I was done with everything in Miles, I felt done. By the time I was done doing all the side stuff in vanilla Marvel's Spider-Man, I felt done.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's I don't know. I liked Miles better, and it's going to be hard to go back to Pete unless they give him new cool abilities too. So anyway.
Yeah, I mean that's the interesting thing about like what they do for that. I'd have to think that the story that it's alluding to, a Peter Parker sequel, will be like more than enough to make it exciting and like fresh with whatever they could do with that. But yeah, like I think there was like a few side activities I just didn't want to do in Spider-Man PS4. I was just like, no, I'm good. So I did not get like the very, very last costume, like Peter in his trunks or whatever. But for this, Miles, like I did everything. Like I made sure to do everything because it's not that hard to do, and you're not, Screwball isn't in the fucking game to like make you not want to get 100%, for example. So everything about it is like obviously just as good as Spider-Man PS4 in terms of its combat. I think it's like maybe a little bit better just because of the Venom strikes are really cool and cinematic, and the animations are so good. And making it in winter does a lot to actually. It really felt like a Christmas game. And in a good way, and that's just really smart from a game design point of view, because it doesn't make you feel like you're swinging around the exact same New York. Time is clearly passed, so it's a basic thing to do, but it was really smart in helping you feel like this is a brand new adventure, which it is, but just to not make you feel like you're swinging around the exact same New York. I think
they got a lot of good mileage out of the same assets.
Yeah,
for sure. It's really impressive.
There was two things that I was just kind of like, and again, they're very minor, is just, Evil Capitalist, what was his name?
The Roxxon guy.
Mr. Roxxon, right. Mr. Roxxon. Having played a bunch of Spider-Man games, there is always a Mr. Roxxon, and I'm kind of sick of it. Like, I'm actually legit sick of it. Like,
That's fair.
Norman Osborn himself is a Mr. Roxxon, the most interesting version of him, but head of evil company, But there's lots of other ones in other Spider-Man games. Like, there's one the Val Kilmer played. There's like a million, and the actor, I don't know if he was voiced by Troy Baker. Maybe it was. It felt like he could have been. But the actor that's behind this character does his literal best he can. He tries to have a little bit of, panache, chutzpah, just be something. But literally, he comes down to, I want money. And he is not the primary villain, but he's placed in a level where you could say he's like a primary villain, and I just was like, just get out. I don't care about you. Please leave my cutscene. Because that's all
plain.
That's all he does, and he is in the game like a fair bit, and he's not a patch on Norman Osborn or whoever you want to say, like a lot of Alistair Smythe, like these other Spider-Man villains, and you just kind of shove this guy in there. I don't know, fuck it. And every time I say, I bet they created this guy for the game, people let me know, like, no, Ultimate Spider-Man issue like 25, that guy's totally in there. I'm like, okay, fair enough. So I'm not even going to say that. So maybe he is from the comics or extended universe, I don't know, but I didn't particularly care for him, and he gets a fair amount of screen time. And the other thing is that the costume you do get for completing the game 100% is just kind of the most nothing costume. I obviously not going to say what it is, but I was just like, oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
There was way cooler costumes towards the end that it could have been that, and I would have been much more happy.
I thought it was very neat of them to distribute a free Spider-Verse DLC costume. I think it was DLC, or was it in a patch? Anyway, but I thought it was very cool of them to distribute a Spider-Verse costume so that everyone could actually see it. Because I know a lot of people didn't see the fantastic, like, classic Spider-Man costume in Marvel Spider-Man PS4, because like,
Mm-hmm.
that one's the last one you unlock in that. So, but yeah, I get what you mean. The last costumes, it's nice. None of them are ugly.
Yeah,
But
it's not ugly. It's just kind of like,
doesn't
oh,
really stand up like quite as I don't
because
know, it's not quite as neat.
anything that you say like, oh, this is what when you've completed the game 100%, this is like it has to kind of live up to that. And I'm just like, oh, okay, that seems like a costume I would have gotten for like in the first couple hours or something. So I mean like, fuck that, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the costume I didn't get at the end of the 100% completion. So that kind of shows how much I enjoyed the game. And much more than Spider-Man PS4, and I got the remastered version of that just to like, because I like it a lot.
Have you played it, by the way? Or?
I did play around with it for, I want to say, like a good 2-3 hours, and it's the exact same game. It looks better, runs better, and it has a couple costumes, but it's the exact same game. But I'm probably never going to sit down and finish that game again. Right. But I can see myself doing it with Miles, just because it's, I can New Game Plus it and probably beat it in half the time, or maybe not half, but like play it.
In my experience, half. Yeah.
Okay. Because I haven't done it yet.
You can manage it. Yeah.
But I can definitely see myself doing that with Miles, just because of its brevity. If this had been Spider-Man 2, like actual 2, and it had Miles in it, Peter, whatever, lots of people would be disappointed, but I do think like for a base completion time, you could certainly reduce it by a little bit to maybe not be at Miles's shorter length, but maybe a bit shorter than Spider-Man PS4, and just make all that side content, the stuff that you don't necessarily need to do, be part of the time you put in afterwards. But just being the story, it's like, I don't mind it. Like a lot of people probably have already seen this, but a lot of the games I have on my list are like, I think Doom Eternal is the longest one, perhaps, but
maybe Hyrule
Warriors. I'm high.
I get what you mean, though. Not super long. Yeah.
And again, to also clarify what I had said earlier, it's like I simply don't have Hades on my list just because I had it on my list last year. I had it on the version that wasn't even complete. So I felt weird about doing it again. Like I don't know. I was just like, well, I spoke my piece about the game already. I made another follow-up video. So to answer those questions that will inevitably come, it's like, yeah, I just don't have Hades. But if I didn't, that would be my clear number one. But Miles's charm and the heart of the story, and like the amazing facial capture and like all the actors, like those cutscenes of like really like intense like relationships like coming to the front, and like the characters laying stuff on the line was like really, like it was just as good as any Spider-Man movie. It did just as good with that as the most intense moments of Spider-Man PS4, which I was happy about, because one slight worry I had about this game is that its tale would be, the tale can't possibly be as epic as the mainline Spider-Man PS4 game. It can't reach that levels of epicness, I guess, for lack of a better term. But in terms of Miles's world, it was, and that's like what I wanted, and that's what I got. So I was really pleased with the story it told in general, because it made so much sense for that character, and the way that this game was made and the way it's presented being slightly, it was slightly not full price, right? I believe
it was not priced at full price. Even if you got the, I think if you got the one that came with Spider-Man, it gets knocked up to full price. But you can buy it on its own. I gotta say, talking about that, the finale, the last big drag out fight really impressed me, because Marvel's Spider-Man PS4 has a really, really great finale, and I wasn't sure Miles could stack up to that, but boy does it. It's a really good last boss fight.
It is.
And the little sequences that occur before and after it are really excellent. It has a surprising emotional core that I wasn't really expecting. Stuff manages to land. I have two little questions for you about it.
Shoot.
Very late in the game, there's a sequence that is not plot relevant at all, so I don't mind talking about it, where you see Peter and Doc Ock together,
yes,
hanging out. Did you also feel surprisingly attached to them when you saw them?
Yes, no, absolutely. Like, yeah. I played out that sequence just for a bit of added context. It's a scene that happens in the past before Spider-Man PS4. So yeah, it doesn't really have any narrative like weight in terms of moving the story forward, but it gives a little bit more context to their past. And like, yeah, I walked to try to make sure I saw everything about that exchange. So yeah, that scene that happens in the past. Initially, I was kind of like, all right, I guess I'll play this out. Like, I know, but that little extra bit about with them was like, ooh, that's a really smart touch, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree, because you're right. Other than that, I wasn't totally in love with that sequence. But man, I was so surprised to see how much I cared about hearing what they had to say, even though I knew it wasn't important to the story and it was off the beaten path.
Yeah, it was. You know, you could totally miss it. Yeah.
You can just. I mean, you have to see them, but you can just ignore them for the whole time.
Yeah. That's sorry. Yeah, you're right. That's more accurate.
It's all good. But yeah, that was the moment where I was like, oh man, they really are building up a world well here. Like, you actually got me. The other thing I wanted to ask was like loading times. What did you think of them?
What loading times?
Right. I don't know if it's. You probably feel the same way.
Even Demon Souls, when you go through like a fog door, it's like 2 seconds or something. It's something, but like it's 0 here.
Yeah, I mean, Demon Souls, it's artistic. Like the fog doors, obviously, like you're just walking through, but like when you load, they spend extra time showing you smoke whooshing at the screen and shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Miles, I'm not shy to say that I used the fast travel quite a bit to like optimize some of my, finishing side quest post-game completion stuff.
I think that's where I used it too. I didn't use it quite a bit, but I did use it just for that purpose that you said. Most of the time I just swung around.
Mm-hmm. But like, man, it really is instant. When I go back to playing other games, right now I'm playing the extremely shaky Shadow of the Tomb Raider, and when I hit a loading screen, I feel like, wait,
this
is a thing of the past. I shouldn't have these anymore. I feel completely spoiled by Astro and Demon Souls and Spider-Man with their like borderline instant loads. I'm so excited for that to be just a standard for everything, everywhere.
Before I started Age of Calamity, I saw someone saying like, it's a little. I've been playing a bunch of PS5, so now that I'm going to Age of Calamity, these load times, and I was like, yeah, meh. And then I actually started Age of Calamity, and I was like, yeah, they're okay. You can make the little robot run around on the loading screen, and that's kind of fun, but there's a lot of loading there, and because it was off the back of having just beaten Miles, I was like, yeah, it's
in Age of Calamity, like there's some smart stuff where like all the loading screens between story missions will have narration that almost always fills the whole duration of the load, which is
it does.
But yeah, when you're playing the side stuff, it's like, oh, you're really feeling it now, and they're not even like long. They're not terribly long.
Yeah, like I don't think if this was there, like a PS5 or Xbox, whatever, or even most PC games of a certain type, like it wouldn't have been that noticeable. But because it's off the back of or alongside next gen stuff, yeah,
it's nice for sure. Yeah, amazing game. I thought Miles was not quite top 10 for me, but Miles was really good. I had a fantastic time with it. So I like it better than the original, I think. Barring some like particular high points, like again, the last boss battle in Marvel's Spider-Man PS4. I think overall I like Miles a bit better.
I think I like Miles a bit better just due like it's the technical advantages that do kind of push it over the edge for me. Like yeah, like you know, 60. Okay, the Spider-Man 4 remastered obviously has this too, but having a 60 frames per second as a option and having like pretty much near instant load times and all that, that's kind of like what makes it a bit better, like in terms of like the overall arc and you know the standard superhero template of like gigantic epic shit happening, and you know it supersedes Miles a bit in terms of that, in terms of its enormity. And, you know, that's kind of what you're looking for a superhero game. Miles tells a more concise tale, so it doesn't reach those massively bombastic levels, but it's the technical things and the smart changes to the suits and venom punching and that stuff that all kind of together, it makes me maybe edge it out a little bit, but I'm very with a PS5 as what it's going to be playing on, a whatever you want to call it, I guess. What would they even call it? Would they call it Spider-Man 2? I assume so. Like
the next main, I imagine the Marvel's Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. That I'm like all these technical leaps that Miles has, like I can't wait to see them applied to the next thing in Peter's story. Just I hope that they do make some little changes, smart changes to how one spends their time versus side activity and main story stuff. Because I would love it if Miles's main story was that template of keeping things a little bit tighter can be applied to Peter in some way while still also offering more in terms of the side stuff. Because that's one thing that like I find the Arkham games still do a bit better than the Spider-Man games, is that a lot of the side missions, side villains are much better fleshed out still than Spider-Man like stuff. Like you'll be
go ahead,
sorry. You'll be like going against that villain's trail for a little bit. He's not the main villain. You don't actually have to do this, but it is something that's mysterious and cool, and you can follow that trail. And that's something that both Spider-Man PS4 and Miles don't quite do. If I recall, I think in Spider-Man PS4, the only thing you got even approaching kind of that was those challenge missions with Taskmaster and a side mission involving Tombstone. And that was kind of the only...
Technically Speedball as well, but we all hate those, so...
Yeah. Okay, before people correct you, Speedball is their own hero in the Marvel Universe. Screwball is the character we are talking about.
Right, Screwball.
Yeah.
Wait,
Speedball killed all of the mutants or some shit like that. I forget.
Oh, good for him.
No more mutants. Anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like, you know, it would be nice to have more like side mission chains with maybe some more interesting villains. I like Taskmaster as much as the next guy. Like, he's sick.
Yeah.
Tombstone, maybe not so much. Screwball, definitely not. It would be cool if they brought back some like real fan favorites and gave him like side mission chains, like Shocker and The Spot.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. Bring back The Spot.
Bring back...
Now that we have instant load times, The Spot can send you anywhere and it'll look great. It'll look like in Miles when you like zip out of a building interior to the open world. It'll be just like that.
To be fair, just like Spider-Man PS4 and Miles they did bring back two villains that were like, you know, never mainline, like interesting, like, you know, but you put them out in like a big thing like this, and it's like, I vaguely knew of Mr. Negative, but I didn't give a shit about him until like I played Spider-Man PS4. I was like, oh, cool, this is a cool villain. And Tinkerer was completely different thing. I think when you and I first saw the trailer we were doing a reaction to like a Sony's conference, I was like, oh shit, the Tinkerer, and you were like, oh, who's that? I'm like, it's a completely like it's a gross old man that just sits at like a workbench and just makes stuff. That's it. He's not even like a real villain in the traditional sense. At least the one that I knew reading comics in the 90s. I don't know if they changed them drastically since then. I'm sure they probably did, but yeah, they will do that. So we joke that you say Spot, or I could say Boomerang, or Hydro Man, or Stilt Man, but I'll give it to Insomniac. They can take one of these losers and make them interesting. So you never know.
Wait, the Spot's not a loser. He was part of MODOK's team at one point. Like, please give the Spot his due.
I will when I see him do a thing. So that being my number one, I'm very interested in yours.
I think you could probably guess it if you thought really hard for a little bit. But
I'm not in the business of thinking really hard.
That's fair. My number one game of the year this year was Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh, of course. I'm so stupid.
No, you're not stupid. It's okay. Again, you're not in the business of thinking hard, so don't worry about it. Yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake, man. What an incredible game. So I want to just get this out of the way. Final Fantasy VII Remake has faults out the ass.
Okay.
There are so many...
It's one of those, huh?
Yeah, lots of long loading screens, especially if you want to, like, in the post-game do, like, extra stuff and go back to polish off other things. So a lot of long loading screens, lots of stealth loading screens where you are crawling under things or sliding through things. Oh boy, sliding through things is horrible in this game. There's a particularly long one to get to a group of kids in this one corner of a town. And it's miserable. It's miserable every single time. But despite the couple of things in this game that are absolutely miserable, this is like another Tetsuya Nomura unhinged game, and I am so there for it. You know, after having finally been able to get through pretty much the entire Kingdom Hearts canon, I am even more here for a Tetsuya Nomura game where he gets to just go crazy with the characters and not worry so much about how he's gonna like figure in Jack Skellington. You know, it's really awesome to see how they've revisited and reimagined things, and it's really cool to get to see the new stuff as well. Early on, there's this new chapter involving a sick motorcycle chase and a new character.
I remember you showing me that.
It's just amazing. It's so fucking good. And it leads to a really nice sequence where you get to learn more about like Jesse and such, which is cool. They're building on it. I don't really know if I agree with the notion that this game has a lot of filler or that they padded out Midgar or anything like that. I think they did a great job, like adding a bunch of content that I enjoyed quite a lot to Midgar. And like, sure, some sections are a hell of a lot longer. The amount of time you spend in Wall Market, the amount of time that you spend in the Coliseum in Wall Market is a lot longer. But a lot of the sense of pacing I find is still like maintained really well. Especially with all the new cool events you get to do, you know, seeing how they've repurposed the Hell House as like a main boss in the game is really exciting. Getting to see the Honeybee Inn dance sequence and its middling rhythm game is still really exciting. Seeing how the characters end up in certain situations. Which massage did you get for Cloud? Which dress is Aerith wearing? It's all interesting, and it's fun to see how the other characters in the world react to these little things that you've made happen. Actually, that is something of a theme through the game. There are a lot of little sequences that you can trigger by saying certain things in dialogue. The game never tells you explicitly that you've done something, but if late in the game you wind up standing out at midnight talking to Barrett instead of one of the two girls. Well, you've done a conversation a certain way in the past, and you've wound up here because of that. This is not to say it's the type of game where it's like a Mass Effect or something where you get to role play hard and play it out exactly the way you want, but it had a little more variance than I expected there. I know the original had some of that as well. And I think that's quite well maintained. The combat system it's so good.
It is.
It's just an incredibly good action combat system. What's really cool about it as well is they have the easier mode version of it where you can play it a little more like an RPG, not have to worry so much about the action gameplay, and it still maintains the feel of the game really well. And then when you play the game on hard mode, which I did after the fact.
Oh yeah.
I did. I finished it twice. When you play the game on hard mode, you're banned from using items, which initially seems like an impossible task, but it really makes you learn all the ins and outs and the nuances of the combat system, and it really pushes you hard to figure out how to flex this combat system so aggressively. There's also some, as you would expect from a Final Fantasy or any game that Mr. Nomura has helmed, there's a healthy dose of secret boss style encounters and post-game things. And they are also really difficult in this game. In fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the hardest boss fights, you have to fight them on hard difficulty. So you're also barred from the item stuff, if I'm remembering correctly, but it's been a hot minute since April, I will admit. I liked a lot of the new stuff they added. There wasn't really much of anything that I disliked for most of the game until I hit the finale section, I suppose. There's a lot about the finale to like, and there's a lot there that I do like, but it goes on a bit, and there's a lot of big ghost monsters where you're like, okay, I guess I just gotta fight more big ghost monsters for a while. Because we need a massive gargantuan finale, even though we're only partway through the Final Fantasy VII story. And I mean, I don't want to get... I highly recommend this game to anyone who's even remotely interested in it, so I don't really want to get into details, but I do feel like in the very last act, there were a few things where I was like, okay, I'm not in love with that, but let's go. Yeah, I'm still down on the whole, it doesn't affect my frothing excitement for the next one a bit, actually. I'm really keen to see where the next one's going to go, because they have shown that they're not afraid to change stuff.
Right.
In the comments, if you're going to tell me that, actually it's like this, I actually know what it is. I'm just trying to talk around it so I don't spoil people too much, so don't worry. But they show that they're really not afraid to change stuff, and I'm really curious to see how much they'll change stuff and how much new stuff they will introduce. How much will this veer off by the end of it, Hopefully a lot, but I guess we'll see, right? All the characters are incredibly fun to play as. So you get to play as 4 out of your 5 characters. So you get Aerith, Tifa, Barrett, and Cloud. Not every chapter gives you access to every character. Indeed, some chapters you're limited.
Yeah, they switch out and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. There's only a few chapters where you have access to all characters, and you get to kind of pick and choose who you want to bench, because of course you only have 3 at a time. You also get Red 13, but in this game, he only really appears at the very tail end of this game. How they explained it, and I think this is a very credible explanation, honestly, is just look, he's at the very fucking end of the game. We didn't make him a full character, so he just sort of fights alongside you. But I imagine he'll be playable in future FF7 remake titles, so whatever, doesn't matter. Anyway, each of the 4 characters is super fun to play as, and they all have a really different feeling moveset. And I mean, I'm sure you look at Aerith and Barrett, and you're like, okay, I can see 2 distinct movesets there. But what about Tifa and Cloud? Sure enough, even though both of them are pretty straight-laced melee fighters, they do have different feels to them, and they did do a great job differentiating them from each other. It's really enjoyable to progress through the game and see which characters you're handed and try to figure out what the best way to play with them as a group is.
Yeah.
To me, this culminated in this one boss in the insanely drag out finale section where Barrett and Aerith alone have to take on this giant robot. That was a very unorthodox party loadout, one that I'm not sure I got to play earlier in the game, and if I did, I don't think I got to play it very much, just those two. And it was maybe my favorite combat sequence in the game, just being handed these two slightly more unorthodox characters and being told to fucking figure it out, I guess, you know. It was really nice. Barrett actually also does get like a bad melee moveset, which is interesting. He can swap out at one point his guns for like more melee oriented.
I didn't know that.
Arms. Yeah, they're not. I don't think they're very good. There could be some stuff that I'm missing, but I think you're better off with the guns at all times. But he does get a miniature extra moveset, which is neat. The materia system is exactly how you remember it, except when it's not. So of course it's an action game now, so everything sort of flows a little differently. You have materia now that gives you new action-based abilities as well. Different types of attacks, for example, that you wouldn't get in an RPG where your only attack command is attack. The way meter management works with your MP and your other meter, whose name I forget, is really clever. You build up 1 meter by attacking enemies with your normal attacks, and you spend it all the fucking time. Your MP is reserved for like your magic and such, as you would expect. That balance works wonderfully. It's really nice. Maybe the only combat system that I'm like, I would hem and haw a little bit over is the summon system. The summon system is like a little situational. There, as far as I recall, there isn't just a menu that you can go into and click summon Bahamut and just summon Bahamut. It's adjusted. It's different. It's a little more, if I remember correctly, like how Final Fantasy 15 handled it, where it's kind of situational, a little more situational. I don't think it's a deal breaker, though. Honestly, the combat is so damn good. I think it's fine. I cannot emphasize enough how much I like the combat. Like it's seriously well done. But there's so much else going on. The characters have so much good characterizations, and the voice actors and animators have worked together to make these amazing performances really come to life. The characters are so much more expressive than I remember them. They're exactly who I remember them to be, and they act just like how I remember these characters being. But you get so much more of them, and it's so much more intimate. It's really satisfying to see them grow and change a little as the story goes on. Of course, we're still early in the broader Final Fantasy VII story, but you do still see a bit of that. The environments, barring minor technical issues that do absolutely exist. I know everyone hates that one door so much. Barring some like technical stuff, otherwise the environments look like phenomenal. The Shinra building in particular, when you get to that, really jumps out at me as an incredible looking venue. The music is insanely good. I mean, I would expect no less, right? And did I just put an "and" at the end of this sentence when I have nothing else to say? Yeah, the music's insanely good. Everything's just so good. I have a lot of complaints about this game, but they really don't.
That's what I mean by like
all that much in the face of how fucking good this game is at all other times.
That's what I mean by like it's one of those types of games where you can see some clear flaws, but they really don't. They really don't mask like the parts that you're really impressed with, or specifically that character stuff is really interesting to me. That you said that these are how you remember the characters, because I didn't grow up playing Final Fantasy VII at all. I didn't have a PlayStation so much later, and I only played it once or twice at like a friend's house or something. So and you're not the only person to have said something like that. Like I think Max said it as well in his video, where they're like, yeah, the way the characters are handled, and it's crazy because like now they have voices. Now, of course, they had voices in, Advent Children, things like that. But like for a full game, like a lot should have gone wrong. Almost with like had to match up with people's memories of the characters. But like I've seen like a lot of people that have echoed the sentiment. Like the characters were handled like really well for like pretty much the entire cast, as far as I know.
Yeah, I think all of the main cast is really done justice, honestly. Some people don't like some of the side characters you encounter. I think that's fair. There's this one girl who's brought in from one of the FF7, I believe, books. Japan only.
Of course.
And I know some people didn't like this character, or that character, I should say. But yeah, the main characters, I think, are really done justice, honestly. And it's very impressive to see them that well realized. I also didn't have a PS1 growing up. I watched Advent Children when it came out and was very confused. And I watched Advent Children like maybe 20 or 30 more times.
You were more confused.
And, yeah, I mean, like, you intuit certain things, but yeah, it still didn't really know. And then eventually, when I had my PS3, I was able to get a copy of FF7 off of a distant cousin of mine, and I played through it there. And it was really nice to finally fucking figure out what everything was and realize that the geostigma really wasn't all that important. Anyhow, yeah, they've done a superb job getting it up to that sort of Advent Children level of presentation while still maintaining the qualities that you appreciate from the original. Yeah, I don't know, dude. Just a really, really, really good game. There's a bit of game design that's like a little bit, I don't want to say old-fashioned, but like there's a little bit of game design in there that's getting a bit tired. Some of the way that like the side quests are structured, or monster hunts, or indeed again the whole like crawling through vents or sidling through narrow spaces to mask loads, like that stuff sucks. But I think the game's positive qualities far outweigh the negative qualities, and I highly recommend it. I also just want to give like big shout outs. It has not been on my console for a while, like ever since I finished it, it's been gone. But Final Fantasy VII Remake, if I'm not mistaken, launched with no day one patch and did not get patched until I think just recently. There was like a PS5 related patch that came out for it.
Right.
The game launched in excellent shape. And yeah, indeed, the only patch, as far as I can tell, came out version 1.01 in October. Many months later.
Right. I didn't know that.
The game launched in immaculate state. There's one bad bug that compromised some people's save files very late in the Shinra building. But other than that, I don't know of any bad issues the game had. If you're going to tell me the door is a bad issue, then I disagree. The door doesn't matter at all.
Like,
it's just an ugly door.
I heard about those door things too. So
yeah, it's a weird issue. But like the game launched in an insanely solid state. That's not something you normally get nowadays.
You certainly don't.
Obviously there's a great gulf between like Cyberpunk and this, and most games don't come anywhere near how Cyberpunk launched. But FF7 Remake launched particularly sharp, and I'm still to this day very, very impressed at that.
I was going to ask you.
I don't want to like poo-poo developers who are putting out day one patches because it's necessary and it's a good
most
thing.
Times it is, yeah.
But like really impressive that they managed to not do that. So
I was going to ask you how the game performs on PS5. Then I was like, well, I can't really ask him that because I have his copy of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I played it fully on PS4 Pro from start to finish. The load times are a little long. The performance was totally fine for my eyeballs, if unremarkable. I don't know on PS5. That's a good question. I mean, it's not a native version or anything.
Yeah,
so
no.
you're still gonna hit the limits of whatever it was at originally.
Yeah. So like, just to give you a bit of context, I'm not sure if I told you, but like the last time, it's like I did really want to play it because I didn't think I would. I don't know. I didn't have a big vested interest in it, but then I tried the demo and I actually wound up really, really liking the demo. So I was like, oh, well, I definitely want to play it, but it was full price at the time, and I was busy with other games, and so then when you were finished, you offered me your copy back in the summer, and I gave it a go, and like I think it was just poorly timed where we were kind of playing it a little late towards the night, and I'm just killing rats, doing odd jobs, and that was just timing wise late at night, and you're just kind of doing the thing that every RPG does at some point, which is do this busy work until like the next big story thing happens. And I just did not return to it since then, but I've always been meaning to, like, especially, it popping up on a lot of Game of the Year lists as well. And I was like, yeah, I should really give this a go. Like, you can complete this in 40 hours, which is not terrible for me. Like, that's kind of the upper crust of the amount of time I do want to spend on something big and epic. And, I think I could find the time to do it if you'll allow me to keep your copy a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you want it
totally.
back, but it is something I want to get back to.
Unless they announce a big DLC for it, nah, hang on to it.
Okay. Because I do want to try to give it a go again and get past that little hump that like a lot of games have like that. Like,
yeah, the nice thing about those 40 hours is they are jam-packed.
Right.
There's a lot of good stuff in there. It is certainly a linear game, so if you mainline it, you won't be wasting too much time hunting rats either. Mm-hmm. That is one thing on the pacing of the game that I suppose I will admit. I kind of glossed over it when I mentioned the pacing earlier. There's a couple hub sections in the game where like this chapter takes place in this town.
Right.
And you can like spend the day sort of doing whatever you want. I think if you try to do a lot of it, you can spoil the pacing pretty hard for yourself.
Okay.
Especially Wall Market, which has a really large amount of side activities.
Mm-hmm.
I believe very few of them are mandatory, though. I'm pretty sure you can cut through them if you so choose. I think they're still pretty good on the whole, though, because they let you fight. So
right. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't think it would be Final Fantasy VII. Like, I know you liked it a lot, and I just didn't pop in my head. It's like one of those things that happens when your game gets released a little bit, a game or anything really gets released a little bit early in the year. When it came out, February, yeah.
April. Let me check. But anyway, yeah, go on.
That sometimes you just kind of. It slips your mind is all I mean to say. Okay, March. Yeah, because
it's funny because it did actually slip my mind, but then I remembered it.
Yeah, all right. Because in March I was so busy with Animal Crossing and like later on Doom, so those two things just made me go like, oh, okay, I'll play that later maybe, and then kept getting like sidetracked. And when you offered me your copy, I was like, okay, well, yeah, I'll take it now just in case. But yeah, I really do want to try to see if I can get further into it and maybe even make it like the big game I work on like casually from now on until I can get it back to you, whatever that'll be.
It's a fun one. I think you'll dig it. And like, man, the good boss fights, there are a lot of good drag out boss fights that just go on, and it's so satisfying to work your way through them. I mean, is this a spoiler that you fight Rufus Shinra? I don't think so. Everyone knows. Dude, the Rufus boss fight is so fucking good. Like, it's so thrilling to fight Rufus. There's so much. You'll have a blast.
The way the combat is, it's like Final Fantasy VII delivers on what the bouncer promised. Which is a cinematic action beat 'em up thing almost.
That's exactly what Tetsuya Nomura was going for with this game. I've played all the Kingdom Hearts games, so I can tell you that.
The bouncer.
For sure. So, for me, that was Ghost of Tsushima, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, Half-Life Alyx, Streets of Rage 4, 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim, Astro's, everything above here contended for first and second. Astro's Playroom, The Last of Us Part 2, Hades, Demon's Souls, and Final Fantasy VII Remake. There was a few games that like just slipped off the list. This one excellent Oculus title called Lies Beneath. Cool
I remember you
game.
talking about that one.
Yeah, that one very nearly made it on, but between that and Ghost of Tsushima, I ended up leaning a little more towards Ghost. But yeah, really bad year for humans. Really great year for video games, honestly. So
it was good. Like the only thing like I'd even possibly say is that like at least for me, I'm not sure so much. I think a little bit for you too, but I think I've seen the sentiment is that a lot of people had like where it was tough to pick things in like your top 3 or top 4. Like it was kind of splitting hairs. I've seen that be
a lot of tight competition this year.
Tight. Just to reiterate my similar but very different list, Fast and Furious Crossroads.
Yeah.
Proteus, The Pathless, Hunt Down, Panzer Paladin, Animal Crossing New Horizons, Streets of Rage 4, Hyrule Warriors, Doom Eternal, and Spider-Man Miles Morales.
I can't believe how different our lists are. That there's only like 2 games. I mean, Hades, sure, that's a gimme. But like that there's only like 2 games that overlap directly. That's crazy.
I don't know. Like, the other thing is that being in like a lot of quarantine, spending more time with yourself and not like, I definitely think we talked actually weirdly a little bit less than we would normally during the year. Mm-hmm. Like it was just a weird thing. It happened with a lot of people. Like, I've been talking with people and like, yeah, I'm sorry I haven't kept in touch. And everyone goes, yeah, no, I'm sorry too. I've been lax on that. Just sometimes, there's been a lot less people feeling like they want to talk and get your opinion on the latest game. And because I feel normally we do. And it's usually when we team up to do like a reaction to like a conference or something, you and I spend a while before and after talking about, like today we spent like a good 2 hours bullshitting around about whatever games and blah, blah, blah. So there's that. But I kind of found that people sort of just randomly found things that they just kind of saw in themselves. Like normally I wouldn't think Proteus or Hunt Down were things that I would have on like a game of the year list. Normally, I would have gravitated probably towards more Final Fantasy VII or especially Ghost of Tsushima because I did have plans to play that and they just never coalesced because I said like, I just, I'm not feeling it today. I don't feel like playing a big, open world thing. Same thing with Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I really liked Odyssey. It was in my top 10 list like a few years ago, but Valhalla I never felt like booting it up. Stuff like that. So I think that it's weird. This year did play kind of, at least for me, like a small role in picking and choosing what games I wanted to play, what I wanted to spend my time on.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. We definitely haven't spoken as much this year as in previous years. I mean, I think deep down we both know that as soon as COVID's over, we'll be right back in each other's arms. So it's not like it's a problem anyway. I get you there. I think there's something there. Your list is very accurate to my mental image of you, I will say though. Like,
yeah, no, there's one or two there that definitely like, is stuff I'm into certainly. But I was really like, I think out of all these games, I was actually really surprised by the most by Hyrule Warriors, because I had played,
which you put third, right?
Third, yeah. I played the little demo. I liked the demo's combat, but I was just like, as much as I like regular Hyrule Warriors, I was kind of just maybe thinking, that might be more or less the same. I might not be that into it, but you'll notice I use the word like addicted to playing it for like a good couple of weeks, like 2-3 solid weeks of just playing that nonstop, and I really, really enjoyed that. But it was just the other 2 games like Doom Eternal and Miles Morales just had a little bit more in terms of the overall package, like with story and characterization and stuff like that. So that's kind of what edged them out for me. But those three, I think those are the three. Like Streets of Rage 4, definitely like a little step back from Hyrule Warriors in terms of time investment and stuff like that. So those are the three that like I think I could have exchanged those in any order really. But would you say Final Fantasy VII was like hands above the other stuff like clearly?
Nope. FF7 Remake, Demon Souls, Hades, Last of Us Part 2, Astro's Playroom, and 13 Sentinels. Each of those, at one point in my life or another, I was like, this is the best. This is the best. This is the best. Or my favorite, I should say. So yeah, they were all, even Astro's Playroom, very small game. Definitely The Last of Us Part 2. Even 13 Sentinels, a game which I have not finished, but I just love so much. All of these were very much jockeying for first. Below that, Streets of Rage 4 is the next one. The only reason I kind of place it just outside that group is because I don't want to go on about the scoring system too much because I'm sure people already are fed up with me talking about it, but it did the way the scoring system is set up and my desire to play the game in a way that would get me good letters from the game did alter the way I played the game, and it did alter my sentiment towards the game when I sometimes felt like I wasn't playing it in a way that was reflective of how I would play the earlier games.
Yeah.
How
I get you.
Again, briefly stopping to just wait to let a combo expire, I didn't find right. I didn't like that feeling very much. Anyway, I felt like I was playing the score system more than the Streets of Rage 4 sometimes. And for that reason, I have it just below. And then Half-Life Alyx, Hyrule Warriors, and Ghost of Tsushima round out the bottom three. Those three, I think, are in the right order. I don't think those really jockey too much. I think I'm pretty dead on with those. Alyx was an incredibly good VR game that did a lot of things that I've already seen in VR, but the few things that it did that were unique were done exceptionally well, and even the stuff I've seen before was at a level of polish that I just cannot turn away from. Hyrule Warriors was excellent. Really fun game to play through fully in co-op, except for the Divine Beast missions, which I played and my girlfriend watched. Well, mostly didn't watch because she thought they didn't look very good. But anyway, Hyrule Warriors was super fun to play together. We both loved the original and we both loved Breath of the Wild, so that was really nice. And Ghost of Tsushima at the bottom. Because I think I mentioned when I was playing Ghost of Tsushima, like it's a really, really solid, good game. A lot of downtime where stuff's maybe not as exciting. If you do try to do everything in the game, there's a lot of repeating content. Not all of it's super thrilling. The shrines aren't super thrilling. The multiplayer is actually like super fucking good as well, and definitely played a part in me getting it on this list. Bearing in mind, it was basically two games in one. So I highly encourage you to try the multiplayer as well. If you do, you do not need to, like if you're just jumping in, you don't need to put in a microphone. You can play quietly with whatever other rando is there.
Yeah.
It has there's a 9 mission story campaign in the online that is like unique 2-player missions. You can also play them solo, but it's really hard. And then there's like a survival mode. Definitely give it a swing.
I definitely will when I get to playing that again, because it did start that on PS5. Maybe played half hour. So I definitely mean to jump back and see how I like the actual open world bit of it, because I just I just kind of played the opening. So
the opening
and with so nice. That, unless you have anything else you wanted to touch on, I think this actually went way longer than I ever thought we would. But when you like games, and you wanna big them up, so it makes sense.
Yeah, I remember at the very beginning last time you said, well, 20 games, only have 2 hours to record. It's gonna have to be 6 minutes per game.
And my first entry, I think I spent 10 minutes on it. So
we blew right through it immediately. But whatever. This was very fun to do.
It was.
Big shout outs to Momoka for editing this whole thing as well, because it's a fucking lot.
Yeah.
So
No, I start to feel bad. It's fine. But yeah, no, thank you so much for spending some time talking about us. I think we'll, hopefully at the end of 2021, maybe we can do this again. But like, locally would be always great too, just because you have like a different vibe and energy there. But yeah, that's what I thought of 2020. That is what Liam thought of 2020. Let us know in the comments if anyone has their personal top tens, and please do not cyberbully us about our choices, because I stand by Fast and the Furious Crossroads.
a bold choice, a bold choice. We'll see how it plays out. Thanks, guys.
Thanks. All right.
Bye bye. Okay.